Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation 197. And it's time for my little bit of boom attack. Which is basically waiting for the delay on YouTube to start so I can silence the video. There we go. That's that done. Well, that was relatively smooth. Okay, let's start us off with a tune, as I always do.
Send forth the best ye breed, go bind your sons to exile to serve your captives need, to wait in haste on flooded oaken wall. Your new God sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threats of pride, by open speech and simple, 100 times.
Hello?
What just happened?
I'm not sure.
I think you might have lost Iron Duke.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we might have lost. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry. Sometimes this happens. Well, hello, everybody. How are we all feeling?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good. I only have one question to ask everybody. Has Trumpomania run wild on you?
Hell yes. In a great way.
Yeah, no, it's been a sort of interesting like weeks and nearly a week now, hasn't it been since since the election? And
they're still counting votes.
They're still counting votes in California
ridiculous.
and Arizona.
Nevada, aren't they? Or is Nevada in?
Right, guys, could you do me a favor, please? That was playing perfectly on YouTube.
We could not hear it.
Well,
No,
I'm
the
sorry
stream
you couldn't
went.
hear it. It was playing on YouTube. Okay? Please don't do that again. Anyway, good evening.
The whole video went. It wasn't on our screen. The shared video.
No, it wasn't playing on my screen either, but it was playing on YouTube. I checked.
Was it?
Yes. That's why I have YouTube open, so I can check things like this. But don't worry about it. Please just don't do it again. If you can't hear it, just tell me you can't hear it. You don't need to start talking over it. Anyway. Never mind. Okay. We're going to talk about the US election a little bit this week because it was last week, which is why Aubrey's a guest on here, because she's a genuine American. And also how the election of Donald Trump for the second time may or may not affect Britain and Australia to some degree, I suppose, and even Canada. But anyway, we're going to talk about some of that. As always, I'm going to start us off with, do people have a first subject they want to start with? I'm going to ask Hitman to start first, please. Did you have a first subject this week?
Yes, actually. Well, people have been speculating, how much of an impact on the world stage Trump's victories had. And, well, already the day after he was elected, the government of Germany collapsed, which is an interesting development. So if people don't know,
That could be good because the AfD could do better at the next German election, I presume.
yes. So what happened is the government of Germany is three parties: the SPD, which are like Social Democrats, the FDP, which are the Liberals, and then the Green Party. And so what's happened is Scholz on Wednesday kicked the FDP out of the governing coalition. Basically, it was a dispute over the budget because the FDP are, though they're liberal, they're like libertarian on economics, so they like want balanced budget and all that, whereas the SDP and the Greens wanted no investment in climate stuff and spending on welfare. And so Scholz has kicked because Lindner, the leader of the FDP, was the finance minister, so they've been kicked out of the coalition. So now it's just the SDP and the Greens, which don't have a majority, and so Scholz wants to keep going until January, when he's going to hold a confidence vote, which will probably fail and trigger an election. However, the opposition want a motion of no confidence called straight away sooner. And so, obviously, because Germany was due to have an election next September anyway, so obviously we'll just get that a bit earlier, it seems. Now, the AfD will probably do very well. However, I don't think they'll form the next government purely because the German parliamentary system, half the seats are first past the post, the other half are PR. What I suspect will happen is the CDU, who are the German sort of main centre-right party, will probably come back into government, propped up by either the FDP or the SPD, keeping the AfD out. But something I've seen Martin Sellner, the German guy, talk about is how this might be good long term, because the CDU have been saying, "Oh yeah, we'll restrict immigration if we get back in," and he thinks they won't do it. So all it will do is just lead to their own demise, and the AfD could eventually become the main dominant party of the right in Germany.
Well, Sellner's Austrian, I believe, but he is a German speaker, of course. But let's hope the AfD do well in Germany. That would be good from our point of view, I think. I'd certainly like, I think if you get parties like the AfD doing quite well, and they're a little bit radical about some of the things they can do, that's going to encourage the likes of Nigel Farage and Reform to be a bit more radical, which, in my humble opinion, they need to be.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Karen.
I was just saying, Farage was doing a speech earlier where he was boasting about the fact that Reform were the only party in London to veto the idea of giving free bus travel to migrants in London, because Reform's only got like one London Assembly member there.
I think it's ironic, Mitch, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, any of you guys. I believe that the bus fares in UK have basically gone up a third for everyone else. And if you're an illegal immigrant, an illegal migrant, you get free bus travel.
In Scotland, they have free bus travel, I believe, whereas England and Wales, we don't get free bus travel. So, yeah, that.
But I mean, in London specifically, London Transport have just put their prices up. Unless you're an illegal migrant, an economic migrant who shouldn't be in the country at all, who's come across the channel, and then you get free bus fares.
Yeah, and there's a Scottish fellow I saw on Twitter who's saying free bus travel allows the migrants up in Scotland to commit crimes and just travel all over the place. And because they don't have to pay, they can't easily get tracked on that. They literally have to go off cameras, which is not really reliable anyway, because you got to think they're going to wear hoods. So so that's what's going to happen over in London. You're just going to get more crime widespread as a result.
Yeah, because you're allowing people to travel. I mean, I remember Aubrey actually was telling me in the US where she lives quite close to one of the big American cities where there is quite a lot of, shall we say, ethnic crime. And as soon as they laid on a bus route to some of the suburbs, that crime spread out. So, not a surprise, really.
It did. The huge Galleria that I used to work at, which was the big mall that everyone went to, is essentially dead now because people were being carjacked in the parking lots. I worked there in college and it was great. Now it's just,
Yeah. So, and that wasn't free. free bus travel is even worse. But then, of course, we've got Sadiq Khan in London, who basically hates white British people for the most part. I think we could say that without getting banned on YouTube, because he does. But anyway, I see people in the chat going on about who's been encouraging mass immigration for years now. I actually made a post based on that, based on exactly the certain group of people that you're thinking of in the chat, and all it did was lose me 3 subscribers. So there we go. But anyway, so this is what happens. Or followers, I think they are on X, aren't they, actually? But yeah.
Were they from that group of people?
I may well have been AI, because obviously I don't know, I mean, how can you tell? You can't really, can you?
No.
Bloody Irish.
Oh, here we go. Adaman, welcome, mate. I'm happy to see you. We were
There he
talking
is.
before the stream started that we hadn't heard from you for a while.
What group is this? What sort of conversation have I barged in on?
Oh, the small hat group, if you know who I'm
right,
talking
okay.
about. Yeah.
I haven't,
Brooklynites.
oh,
Do you remember there was a lot on Twitter about 4 or 5 days ago about a certain group being chased around in the Netherlands, I think?
oh right, no, I haven't seen about it.
Yeah, no, they were being chased around in the Netherlands by another certain group who we're not supposed to talk about, who are very common in Britain, for example. And I just pointed out in this one of these posts, I just said, yeah, but I'd have more sympathy about this, because of course the people were moaning about it, and rightly, because we don't support violence, of course not. We never support violence against any group of people.
Wow.
But we don't. This is YouTube, mate. But I just pointed out that, it's a shame that the lefty liberals of this particular group had been pushing mass immigration for the last 50 years. And all it did was lose me 3 followers, basically.
I mean, there were accounts, Dutch, like Civnat, and European accounts who were saying, as Europeans we failed. This is a second pogrom, a Dutch pogrom. And I just put, I did the what was like a meme where I was like, we, lol,
Yeah.
we.
Yeah, where's the we? Yeah, exactly. One of the comments I saw in it, which I thought was quite good, was that someone pointed out, well, this is going to allow the Wilders to maybe institute some of his plans. And if it does, good.
I mean, Wilders has already said that he would deport North Africans and Arabs and stuff, and Muslims in general, if they pose a threat to Jewish people living in Holland. So I can very much see that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I like I said, I am completely neutral where Israel is concerned. I'm not a Zionist. But if that enables Kurt Wilders to deport people, which I'm entirely in favor of, then more power. More power.
Yeah, sure.
That's my view on that. Hitman, did you have anything else you wanted to say on that subject, and did anyone else have anything they wanted to add to it? We were talking, Adam, and we were talking, by the way, about the German government collapsing and maybe the AfD getting a bit more support.
Right.
Well, one thing I would say is, though I've said I don't think they'll be forming part of the government, because let's be real, the AfD and the CDU are probably going to be the big 2 parties that are going to be, I think, left after this election that's going to come. And if the CDU had any sense, they would just go into coalition with the AfD, but they're not going to do that. They're going to cuck and go and work with the left as they always do. But one thing I have to wonder is whether they could do what they did in Sweden, where the Sweden Democrats are not formally part of the governing coalition. They just have a supply and confidence agreement with the other parties. So they don't have any cabinet positions, but some of their policies have to be enacted by the government. Otherwise, the Sweden Democrats will withdraw support. So I wonder if something like that could happen.
I know in Turingen, the AFD were the big winner. Like they won 32 out of like 96 seats. So they won like a third. But they just got locked out basically by everyone to the left of them coalitioning to block them out. Unstable, but that's just the way German politics is. Like literally, any the right wing party get blocked out by literally everyone else, including the CDU. The same happened in France as well earlier this year when we had the election.
And the
Yeah,
AFD as well seem to have capped out at sort of 18% public support. I think so much of their support is just focused in the east.
Yeah, and the German state, like what was it, Hanover, banned. I think they've actually banned the AFD from standing in some elections, and they want to try and get them removed off the ballot in a general election as well. I wouldn't be surprised if more states, particularly in the West, try and pull that stunt to sort of get the AFD out. I mean, I think the AFD could go beyond 18%, but the trouble is there's two factions in the AFD. You got the one that's the chap who's leading the Thuringia one, who's had the most success, and he's a genuine German nationalist, and then you have another fraction of the AFD, which is sort of more sort of situated towards weak civic nationalism, and of course when they attempt to do something, they didn't win. You know, it was the chap in Thuringia. He won outright in the state election.
What do you guys think about? I know I don't know if it's true now, but at one stage, Reform were all in favour of proportional representation, and we're talking about the German system, which is at least partially that. And I'm not sure it's a good idea for Britain.
No, because first past the post, though it's very difficult to break in once you're sizable enough, that's it, you're locked in. Because, I mean, just look at this Labour government. This Labour government has 400 seats, nearly 2/3 of all seats in Parliament, with only 1/3 of the electorate voting on low turnout. So Reform, their chances of forming a government are more likely under this system than PR. Because under PR, all that we might see is even if they got, like, I don't know, 1/3 of the vote, is they'd only get like 200 seats in Parliament, and everyone else would just block them out.
This is my view entirely, man. I really do agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I used to think PR would be a good thing, and I know people in the BNP of old were very much in favour of that. But I think looking at it now, no, because it, as Hitman said, they will just sort of lock you out. But also, you would end up having total left-wing dominance, because unfortunately in this country, for the time being, but the left-wing parties, nominally left-wing parties, I won't include the Conservatives in this, but I'm sure they're left-wing as well, but the left-wing parties dominate the political landscape up and down the country in most of the occasions. It's even Reform. One of the problems Reform has is they have that support is there, and that ability to win. And I've noticed, like a couple days ago, there were quite a few council by-elections, and they won a couple and came second in quite a close second. I think one was it was 12 votes between them and the Labour candidate. But the problem is Reform's problem is getting their voters out, and I think I think they could win first past the post, but it's getting the vote out, and I think that's what they struggled. I think that's what they struggled with last time, because they were projected to win 12 seats in the exit poll and they won 5. And I think the problem was a lot of their voters just thought to themselves, well, Labour's going to win. There's no point me voting because Reform aren't going to win it, so I might as well not bother voting.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there were also people on the right, naming no names, who were saying, "Oh, don't vote." You always get that these days, which I think is entirely ridiculous. It just is. I mean, even if I realize why people say we can't vote our way out of this. I don't even totally disagree with them, but in the meantime, it's better than not voting. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not voting means they'll just ignore you. And as I have said many times, look at the example of Portugal. where the turnout is really, really low ever since the CIA-inspired revolution, which lost the Portuguese their empire, basically by putting in a left-wing party that was supported by the CIA. Ever since that's happened, people don't bother voting in Portugal, and they just get continual left-wing governments because people don't vote.
Yeah,
The more dissident-minded people who say there's no political solution, I mean, they're probably right, but the problem is that like if you I bring up this example a lot, and it's a bit cringe, but it's true. Like you look at Israel. Israel is the ultimate parallel society because it has its guys in all these major governments all over the place.
Yep.
So it always has that support. It can go and antagonize, European peacekeepers in the Lebanon, or go and arrest French gendarmeries and stuff like that, and it can get away with this.
Yeah,
and if you're going to be a hostile,
it can literally threaten to attack Irish UN soldiers.
Yeah, and it's like, if you're going to run a dissident group in essentially within a hostile country, which is what we're kind of faced with, we are under a hostile government ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have some political presence there that can defend you, even if it's just 5 MPs or 6 or 7. And funny enough, a lot of the same people that have said there's no point voting, there's no point having this political thing, this, that, and the other. Some of those people have been interviewed by politicians on these essentially out of kilter platforms like GB News or like Reform People and stuff like that. So yeah, there's no political solution, but there obviously is a space for politics.
Yeah,
I think with that, I think people like Rees-Mogg, for example, who I know interviewed Academic Agent. I think he's interviewed some people from the Lotus Eaters before on GB News, and then of course, people on GB, like the main presenters on GB News. They understand or their bosses understand where the energy is on the right. And it's on this online space here. That is where the energy is, and that's where the energy has been for probably ever since lockdowns, because I think that was a pivotal change in the dynamics of things. The energy isn't with these fly-by-night podcasters who are attached to the Conservative Party or Reform or whatever. This is where the political energy on the right is, and so I do think that's why they that you get interest, and that's why when I was with the Wellington Project, now defunct, why we had people like Eric Kaufman, who is a well-known statistician on the right, why we had a few politicians approach us, because I guess they knew that what we had, or what we were sort of building at that point, was something that was it was a form of energy.
AI, could I ask you, like, in terms of the Wellington Project, which I used to be peripherally involved with, and like these days I'm on the Worcester Club Discord, for example, and I do not agree by any means with everyone in the Worcester Club, but there are good guys in it, like there are people like John, who's been on this stream, Jack, who I hope to have on this stream in the near future. So there are good guys in the Worcester Club, and I was kind of the opinion that the Worcester Club is kind of a replacement for that. Is that right, or am I not accurate there?
I don't know. I haven't been in contact with those guys in a while, largely because in my mind, they'll most definitely disagree, but in my mind, their political, their vision of what going forward was different to how I and I think the sort of mood was going towards. And some of them want to be liberal, which is fine. I just don't want to be a part of that, and so I'm not now. I don't know what this Worcester Club is, if it's a replacement or something similar to that. I say I don't know what their aims are, so I can't speak to that. But I mean, what I can say is, you know, um, I mean, if they want, I don't mind, and this is the thing, I don't mind reform doing well, but at the same time, the reason why they didn't win as many seats, and they could have won, in this last election, they could have won well into double figures. And I think one of the reasons they didn't is, and it was all over Facebook and Twitter as well, and that, as we've seen with the US election, social media does play a big part in it, is
It
that
does now, yeah.
it does. Well, I think it did then. It did then as well this year. Is that Reform tag teamed up with Hope Not Hate. Millions of people in the UK. So I remember I saw it on Facebook. I saw like little
Yeah, that lost them a lot of support. I was very disappointed in that.
That lost them.
Yeah.
That lost them a lot of support, and quite frankly, people like Tice have to bear that responsibility, because they should be held responsible for that, and Farage as well, because I mean to be fair to Farage, I don't think he was in leadership at that time. So
no, he wasn't. No,
he wasn't in leadership at that time. But Reform as a machine, they fucked up their chances at the beginning, which I find quite unforgivable, and I can see why a lot of people on the right said, "Don't bother voting for these clowns," because of Hope Not Hate and everything. I know a lot of people at the Homeland Party have that similar opinion, and I totally get that.
But we can't look. We've had this conversation before, but I'm going to reiterate it because I think it is worth reiterating. Homeland Party, who I hope do well, and I hope they get some people with enough personality to be useful leaders. But we can't wait 10 years until the Homeland Party are going to run MPs. We can't. That's another, I don't know, 5 million third world immigrants Britain will have in that time, at least, probably more.
Yeah, I don't think we have to worry. We don't have to worry about Homeland, because they won't be fielding candidates in the UK general election anyway. It's going to be
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Exactly my point.
We're not. I know. I mean, we don't need to worry about that. But when I think Reform will have to. I mean, the only hope is come next general election, and I think there will be a general election before 5 years. So I think the Labour Party will just eat itself. The party will just eat itself if Trump is if it's still within the Trump's term limit, there is something that could be done. But I mean, they say there's no way voting out of this. The only thing is, the only thing that I will say is, if the the global empire, as we all call it in America, if there is like a genuine reshaping where America does become more isolationist, or there's the circulation of elites within the United States, the nexus of power of all like what we would call wokeism, and a lot of these like NGO things, if there is a disruption in there, which there could be, who knows, depending on what happens, that could serve the Britain quite well. That could serve Britain indeed very well. But it depends what happens in that regard, or it could be that nothing changes, and that it's just
I'm agreeing with you, AI, but Tricky Woo in the chat is saying it's not going to use their system to overthrow their system. To me, right, I just think this is being a bit black-pilled. And the one thing I do agree with our American brothers on, who all supported Trump, by the way, all the good Americans I knew supported Trump, including guys who are much to the right of Trump, okay, was because it gives them a bit more time. It gives them a bit more time to organize, and also it disrupts the left globalist, however you want to describe it, push. And I think, you had people like Don the Pleb, for example, who's a guy I really like, an American dude, and he's a good man, who would say things like, and not just him, people like Charlemagne, people like Orrin McIntyre, like people like the Distributist, who I really like, a good bloke. They were all saying, look, this gives us a bit more time to organize, and it's going to disrupt the left, and it's a good thing. And I totally agree with that. And I think if we were able to get, say, a Farage reform government in 2029 or even 2028, that would be a great thing. Because if we can turn off the tap of mass immigration, it will be much easier to have a more radical program later on. Whereas if we don't, and we continue with Labour and Conservatives for the next 10 years, we're going to be in a vastly worse position in 10 years than we are now.
I mean, I will say, though, that the closer Reform get to power, probably the more like the Tories they'll start to look.
Probably, yeah. I don't disagree with that, mate. But I mean, look, Trump's a 90s Democrat. He's not a fascist or a Nazi or whatever the left call him. He's
Sadly.
not. No, I'm not even disagreeing with you, Ahmed, but the point is he's a lot better than the alternative.
Yeah.
And I think in the meantime, until we have a genuinely radical party in Britain, we have to support Farage and Reform, because there isn't anyone else at the national level.
Yeah. Do you want? Would you let me to share screen with because I saw this in the Guardian. You see that, Duke?
I'll put it up, mate. Hang on. There you go.
So yeah, that's pretty much the thought process that's going on with Reform. Where I don't know how far they'll take it, but they certainly are going to get a lot of inspiration from the Republican side regarding what to do with, what to do with the public sector, who are massive pushers of the agenda and so on.
Yeah, you've got to have massive sackings in the British civil service. You just have to have for it to do any good at all, you know?
Yeah, and however, as Atterman would say, this is what Reform have were coming out with not too long ago.
Yeah, and I hope
I
hope you have been, like everyone else should be, pushing back against that, because that is not what we want Reform to do at all.
It's one of those things where, on one hand, I'm conflicted as to whether to join up with Reform and see what good I can do within, or join up with Homeland and just quit trying to deal with Reform. Sort of voting for them.
I think you can do both, Mitch. I think you can do both. I think you can support Homeland at the local level, which is where they are trying to go at the moment, whilst supporting Reform at the national level. Now, if Homeland get onto the national level, my views on this are likely to change. But until they do, they're not.
Because it's one of those things where... I mean, as I said earlier, the thing was because the thing about Reform is that, 1 minute, you got them coming up with this, and we got a brown Muslim chairman who used to work at Goldman Sachs. Let's not forget.
Totally agree. Totally agree, Mitch.
But then you've got Farage saying this, and I go, I hope Seb Gorka's bollocking at Mar-a-Lago this week taught some sense into Farage, and gets him to start looking up remigration as a concept. Because bearing in mind, one of the main reasons why I got back into supporting Trump was because he on Fox News, it was like they're saying like, oh, this is what the Democrats say they're going to do regarding the housing crisis, and then the Republican side literally said mass deportation to ease housing demand, and I thought,
which of course it will.
Yeah, and it's worth noting Oh yeah, another thing about the mass. Let's say Trump were to pursue mass deportation. Just to segue slightly, that's what would happen if Trump were to pursue his mass deportations of illegal
Well, let's
immigrants.
hope he does. Let's hope he does.
Basically,
I-
the
I-
deep blue states lose electoral points.
I mean, the argument that will be made by many of like people round Farage will be we can't be too radical. But the thing there is, as Mitch just said, in the last week or so, Trump did go radical on the immigration and basically repatriation.
Yeah, he's talking about mass deportations. I mean,
Mass
for
deportation.
God's sake, who wouldn't support that in any British government?
But-
You know,
but
if a British party said that, I would absolutely say, yeah, let's support
Yeah.
them.
And as a result, not only did he win all the swing states and hold on to his states, but he expanded his margins in states like California and New York. I think he expanded the vote share and everything. And it's like in Germany, in Thuringia, same thing with the AfD. So these sorts of things are popular. They are there.
Yes,
And that is what is required, and this is why deportations. I mean, he could even do it. Start it off with mass deportations of criminals, of criminals and people who've committed crimes in this country.
and illegal economic migrants, which is everyone who crosses the channel, pretty much.
Yeah, people, criminals, and that.
France is not a dangerous country, according to the United Nations.
No.
Anyone who comes from France to Britain is not a real refugee. They are not. They were already in what the United Nations consider a safe country.
Exactly,
They're not refugees.
Yeah, because that's number one. That was what get people out to vote for reform.
I would just say one other thing that I think is what Mitch is getting at with this age stuff he's putting up now. A lot of the support for the AfD, who we were talking about with Hitman earlier, and also for reform, which is good. And it was also true of the presidential election in America of Trump. Many of the people who are supporting a more right-leaning way of voting are younger people, and they're particularly younger white men.
35% of young men in this country voted reform in the last election,
which is huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
Given that the Conservatives are a party which is literally dying out because the so-called, in air quotes, conservative base is basically all now 60, 70, 80, 90,
Yeah, no, true. And I mean, you see the graph there, similar tale in America, 1824. And because that reforms contract includes leaving the ECHR net zero expulsion from criminals and illegal immigrants.
And I have to agree with John on that. I mean, John's been on this stream a number of times and would be welcome to come back again when we have less guests. But yeah, he's not wrong about that.
Yeah, that's a good first step. If that is reform's policy,
which I think it is. I think John understands reform's policy pretty well, and he's a pretty intelligent dude. I like John. He's a good bloke.
I still say net zero migration would still be hundreds of thousands a year.
It would be more than we want, but it would be so much less than we're getting at the moment, Alman. So much less.
It's less than 1.2 million.
Exactly. It's a lot less. Yeah, absolutely right.
I mean, the thing is as well is that these things have, it depends on if you can get momentum to them. The main problem reform's going to have, which is like where people could probably make a difference, is just to make sure that it doesn't get, conservified. And I mean big C conservified, not small c. You don't want too many of the people that turned the Tory party into what it was sneaking over, which some of them already are. But
yeah, but but there are more radical people like us, Adam, who can, as I think you're saying, can
yeah, the
do
thing
something
is,
to
though,
stop that. Yeah,
is obviously Reform wants to actually be an operating party, so it's going to take in people that actually have experience of working in or operating a working party. Over, let's say, Gaza, who's got big ideas from down the pub and doesn't like the immigrants, but is also one of us,
But there are people like you, Adam, and AI, and also I believe Mitch, who do have some experience on the ground working with real political parties. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say from personal experience dealing with reform types, like I disclose some of my power level a bit by saying, oh yeah, we should only really accept immigrants from Europe, and perhaps the only non-white immigrants we should accept are like Koreans and Japanese, and I didn't really get any disagreement on it. So
good.
So the rank and file are with you. The mid rank, I mean, there was one like mid rank woman we had to deal with, not as far along as I'd like her to be, but I mean, she's basically one of these she's basically anti woke, but she still believes that everyone can be British, blah blah blah. So it's like further you go up, it feels like you kind of have your work cut out. I would echo what John said. I'm probably going to join up with Reform by the end of the year, just because I was thinking joining Homeland. However, let's say for argument's sake, Homeland Party 10 years down the line. Because I don't think Reform will outlast when Farage inevitably retires, because he's not going to be wanting to do this forever. Homeland will need to cannibalise off the pre-existing Reform Party structure in order to march forward. So even if, let's say, you're a Homelander type, I'd say there's good pragmatic reasons to join up with Reform and engage with the rank and file, as well as climb up the hierarchy.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with you totally, Mitch, on that. I really would. I think for now, and John said the same thing in the chat, which I put up on the screen. For now, join Reform, and you can get off the bus at the point where they don't do what you want them to do.
It's like, yeah, you get some people on Twitter. I can get where they're coming from when they criticise Reform, because I mean, like, for example, Farage. I forgot he said this, by the way. I forgot he said this, but apparently he said he wasn't concerned about the demographic replacement that's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas 3 years ago he said the complete opposite. I don't know why. Because I mean, if you ask your average punter on the street, like you ask the average guy in the pub, what do you think about us becoming a minority? Of course, we're all livid about the idea of becoming a minority. So I don't know why Farage said that.
Now, be fair, Mitch, Farage did come out, because that was something I was just going to raise now, and the reason is that there was an article, I think in like Al Jazeera or something, where he does talk about the demographic change in this country, which he acknowledges. And I think because, number one, he did that interview with, was it Eddington? I think it was an interview with that chap called Eddington.
Yeah, Steve Edgington. Yeah,
Steve Edgington.
The more recent one.
Yeah, the more recent one, where he was asked, what about demographic, and he was like, "No, I don't care about demographics and changes in demographics," and he had a lot of pushback on that by a lot of people, and then you got Clarkson, who's sort of signalled with that recently today. In some capacity, and
we're going to be talking about Jeremy Clarkson and the farmers' protest on this stream, but
in a sec. So there is that. So I think Farage does or it has been sort of revealed that this is this isn't as taboo as he. Because I know the reason he doesn't go down that route is because in his mind it's probably old-fashioned BNP, National Front talking points and all that sort of stuff. We don't want to go down that route, but I think as time goes on, I think he'll have to lean into that. And the problem he had is when Generic was running his conservative leadership campaign, he started leaning into that. And so, and if the Tories had any sense, they would have gone for Generic to sort of.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to look at this realistically, guys. And Farage has a realistic chance of being the next British Prime Minister. I wouldn't say a huge chance, unfortunately, but he has a realistic chance.
To Farage's credit, though, on the Edgington interview, I mean, this was coming at a time where they were trying to basically smear him as being an instigator of the riots.
That's correct, and thank you for that.
So they were, I think, because I mean, Farage is someone that in the past has admitted he can be a little bit fearful about leading too many headlines and making too many waves in politics, because it's a dangerous place to be if you're a genuine outsider like he is. So
I mean, I think one of the things people don't realize in Britain all the time is just how anti-Farage all of the mainstream media in Britain is. I mean, I think if Farage was honest, even GB News would only marginally support him. No one else would. Every other British mainstream media outlet would be calling him a fascist and a Nazi and Hitler and all that stuff that Trump got, basically.
I would say there's someone somebody said there's only 15% chance that Farage could win. To be fair, after 2016, anything can happen. So
yeah.
I mean, and so I know Ataman, he often mentions the Labour Party and go. So, for example, I think it was like 1902. I think it was where Labour won something like only like a few seats.
Yeah,
they were very small, very small.
And then
3 seats.
And then because the Labour Party expanded the franchise after the First World War, Labour just completely supplanted the Liberals. Like, the Liberals completely lose 8, Labour win big in such a short space of time. So I would say if Farage is going to win in the next election, turnout has to go up back to something like 72%, like it did in Brexit, because the turnout in the last election was like 60-odd%. So you'll know Farage has won the next election, or won big at the very least, if you see turnout go up significantly in the next election.
Oh, another thing I think is important is Reform and Farage have to be seen to get victories against the government. So, for example, we talked the other week about that Labour MP who suspended Mike Amesbury for punching one of his constituents. Well, he's actually going to be put on trial at a magistrate's court, and if he's found guilty, you can actually launch a recall petition against him, which is where as long as 10,000 constituents sign the recall petition, which has successfully been used before, it will trigger a by-election, and if Reform can win that will be a massive boon and a massive blow against Starmer, and they just need to, I think, stack up enough wins to build momentum.
And they could probably win that seat as well. I think they came it was quite a third or something like that in that seat, so it'd be an easy win for them to achieve.
John Cavalier is saying in the chat that I would be fine with people like the Gurkhas coming to the UK. So we all have our soft spots for various other cultures. He really doesn't, because I'm talking about 200 Gurkhas who've spent at least 12 years in the British Army coming to Britain in a year. Like Ammon, Mitch, AI, Hitman. You guys all know that those are like infinitesimally small figures.
Have you been to
British immigration?
Just to go along with what John was, because I saw also an earlier post he did about on a cultural basis. I'm certain that those who came from Pakistan or from the old British India, the old generation that came here, not the children, the offsprings of those today, but the old, and same with parts of Africa and everything. A lot of them came here, no doubt, because most of them were loyal to the British Empire. They didn't want to stay in post-independence or what have you, right?
You can watch Bald and Bankrupt wandering around India today, and you'll still meet Indians who say the British need to come back. You know,
Yeah, I saw that one. That was a good one. But my point is, I mean, that's I understand what John's saying. It's good because if they're. But the problem is, what you do have the ultimate problem that effectively race does deter how groups envision themselves. And the thing though is, when you're a minority, and this is someone who has been living in a country where I am a minority, not about the UK, by the way, I'm talking about when I was living overseas, that, you do, even though it is a different dynamic, you are a minority. And the thing is, it's how their children, you end up having grandparents who come from Pakistan who were loyal to Britain because they didn't want to stay there because they were loyal to the Britain of that they were brought up in. And then hold on, Andrew. Hold on. Let me just explain this point because it's important, because I have seen this before. You then have the parents which are mildly indifferent, but and then you have the grandchildren who end up hating the country.
Yeah,
right?
all true, and I'm not denying that, and I'm not even arguing with you about that because you're correct. The point I'm trying to make is I'm talking about 200 people a year. It's nothing, okay?
It's a drop in the ocean.
It's such a tiny number. It wouldn't affect British demographics. How many million people do we have in Britain now? But Adamant, according to the official figures, which are probably 2 or 3 million out, but
like 77 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so 200 people a year ain't going to make no difference, guys.
But is it more than that currently? Like, isn't there more Gurkhas than 200 a year currently?
Oh, it might be. I don't know, but I wouldn't allow people to just come from Nepal and settle in Britain. The only people I would let settle in Britain were people who had served at least 12 years in the British Army. And them, I'd let bring their immediate family over, nobody else. And the vast majority of Gurkhas, by the way, do not want to settle in Britain. They want to settle back in Nepal because the British Army pension in Nepal makes them pretty well off, whereas in Britain it doesn't. So you're always talking about a tiny number of people, all right? I'm sorry, if you're going to talk to me about less than 1,000 people a year, I'm not even going to take any notice of it, to be honest. As soon as you go over that sort of number, then I'm going to say, no, they shouldn't just be allowed at all.
Just a question for John in chat. What makes somebody an outside foreign group culturally compatible? What makes them culturally compatible? This isn't a trick question or anything. I'm just interested to know what he views as culturally compatible.
What does Duke think though? What's your answer to that?
Well, my example. All right, I'll give you my perfect example. I don't care if you are an interpreter for the British Army in Afghanistan. You don't have a right to come to Britain. No, you don't.
To be fair, I wonder if Farage probably has a similar view to say. I mean, to be fair, you remember the comment, mate? Was it 2015 or 2016? Like at the time of Brexit, where he said, "Oh, he doesn't want Eastern Europeans coming in," and there are plenty of people who comment. I don't know the proper context of it, so I might be talking at my arse. But he said something along the lines of, he wants Poles and Romanians out for favour of Indians and Commonwealth.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, look, I don't really want Poles and Romanians, to be honest with you, but I'd sooner have 200 Gurkhas than 5,000 Poles and 15,000 Romanians, I really would. But I'm talking about such tiny numbers that they are not going to affect the demographics of Britain.
Yeah.
And they're the only group I say that about. I don't say it about anyone else.
I do remember, I think it was Conservatives or Boris or something, there was a plan when they had all that problems in Hong Kong, for all those Hong Kong people with British passports, like 10,000 or something.
I never supported that. Never supported that.
No,
I remember Morgoth calling it show you all the settle them in Scotland and make it Scotch Kong.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I do remember that one. Yeah,
send them all to the Orkneys and the Shetlands and turn the Orkneys and Shetlands into Hong Kong. But no, I never supported that. what I did support back in the day when Mrs. Thatcher was still in power, I supported reinforcing Hong Kong and telling the Chinese, well, we're not going to leave. But, you know, we weren't brave enough to do that.
I mean, this is where it comes down to, and this is what my belief is. I don't think anything is. I don't believe in cultural compatibility. I don't believe. I think what you have is sometimes you have in history you have empires.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second to finally finish this, which people have slagged me off for a year and a half now, at least, and probably longer. If it was 2 million Gurkhas all done 12 years service in the British Army, which is ridiculous because there's only one brigade of Gurkhas in the British Army, which is about, I don't know, 3,000 men. No, then I wouldn't support it. Okay? If it was that many, no, I wouldn't. 200 a year? Don't give a shit. Makes no difference to Britain. So anyway, that's a sort of, look, I just think we're getting knocked off our topic at the moment. And 200 a year of Gurkhas who have done 12 years in the British Army and often have British Army medals, yeah, I'll take those guys. But if it was 2 million, of course I would not.
I do feel this conversation is coming to what effectively Lawrence Fox is saying. Well, as long as they're Christian and play rugby and love cricket and everything,
that's not what I say at all.
I know I'm Jew. It's not what you believe in. But my point is, I don't believe that there is such thing as cultural compatibility. There is only one English identity. There's only one Welsh, one Scottish, one Irish identity.
But 200 Gurkhas a year is not going to change that, all right?
Right. What about Sheraton, though?
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm just saying is, other your points being made in chat and everything is I don't think there is wider compatibility in that regard.
No, look, I've already said 2 million Poles would be far too many. 1 million Romanians would be far too many. Okay, but we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is 1 million third world immigrants who have nothing whatever to do with Britain coming in every year. That's what we're actually talking about. And people try and distract you by going, oh, Iron Duke would let 200 Gurkhas a year in. Well, come on, give me a break, guys.
I mean, yes, people. Yeah, I would say also if it was 200, if it was like 2 million French, German, or Scandinavian, it wouldn't have the same effect as it. I mean, there would be an effect, but it wouldn't have the same effect because the problem is you're having people who are coming not from Europe, but so far flung areas of the globe which have very little. I mean, even dare I say, even parts of Africa which were under British control, while there's there is some similarities. I've been amazed with some people from Zulus who I met and Nigerians and everything, how there aren't that many similarities with Britain because Britain was an all domineering empire that tried, like the Spanish, that tried to restructure society. So I don't buy that. I just don't buy this cultural relativism that we can all sort of like become the same thing. I don't believe that.
I don't buy it at all either. I totally agree with you. Like I said, I would be anti 1 million Poles a year coming into Britain, 1 million Russians a year, 1 million Romanians or even Hungarians.
What about 200?
200? No, I'll put up with that.
What about 200 Somalians?
No.
Or Nigerians?
None.
No?
No. Not one. Not one. Not even one. 200 Japanese. Adamant.
Oh, here we go.
200 Japanese. Yeah, I've got 200
The yellow
Japanese.
fanny exception's coming in.
No,
but hang on, you've got to be fair here, guys. You've got to say here.
Yeah, the cute one.
I said 200. Count Duckegg makes the good point. 200 Frenchmen. I'm not against 200 Frenchmen a year coming into Britain because
well, hang on, I'm crossing the line now.
Because let's say they married an English man or an English woman. All right, I'm not against that, but you've got to have limits, and they have to be very, very, very low.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
they
I mean,
have to be low.
Like, not to out myself as a civnat, because I'm not, but like when the lefties say you can let these people in because you can integrate them, like they have a point, but you're talking about like a minuscule number.
Yeah, 100.
You know, like
that's my point. That's my point. Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is,
my
the same
point.
with the boat crossings, like the irregular boat crossings. People would probably be a lot softer on that stuff if we hadn't had years of legal migration on the scale that it has been.
Yep.
The public would actually probably be pretty bought in. You know, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wouldn't have to come back because he'd still be here, and people would still be bought into the 90s liberalism. But
look, I'm pretty sure that your average British person, if say you had, let's think of an example. Let's say you had one Chinese man, or one. Let me think of another example. One.
Japanese.
Yeah, well, not really, because the Japanese don't count for this. But let's say we had one Chinese man who the Chinese Communist government was absolutely going to execute. But I reckon that if that was the case and he asked for political asylum in Britain, most British people would turn around and say, yeah, all right then. If it was one guy and his family. But you're not talking about one guy. You're talking about tens and 20s and 50s of thousands of people. That we cannot do without destroying our own nation.
So basically, we're basically just did a massive circle for about 10 minutes just to come back to my conclusion. In terms of what we're saying to Reform Party members about only really wanting Europeans or East Asians in terms of migrants. In terms of on that stuff like working, I mean, the student and care worker visas are massively exploited by third world columns and whatnot. But let's say for argument's sake, it was up to us, it would literally just be Europeans, and perhaps the only non-white group really would be like Singaporeans, Koreans, and Japanese.
Yeah.
Basically. And
I mean, I could certainly live with that if the numbers were very, very small.
Well, that's the purpose I chose those countries, because people don't move in massive numbers from those countries.
I mean, let me give you another example. Afrikaners from South Africa. I have nothing against Britain giving political asylum to Afrikaners from South Africa. Nothing at all. I think we should. All right.
How many Afrikaners are there, if you don't mind me asking? Because I'm just trying to think.
There's probably about 2.5 million these days, maybe.
Are we talking about Afrikaners that are still in Africa, or are we talking about diasporas that have spread out?
Mostly the ones who are still in South Africa, because they're the guys who may need political asylum at some stage.
I'm just going to echo what Patrick said. That we're basically.
But of course, they wouldn't. Hang on, guys. Before I let you at this subject, most of them wouldn't come to Britain. You'd have many that would go to the Netherlands. You'd have many that would go to America, Australia, New Zealand, as indeed they already have. So, I mean,
Yeah.
And Russia, by the way. Russia actually offered them political asylum.
Right. I'm just going to echo what Patrick said. Basically, we're doing a massive circle wank about this. Like, should we just end it at just saying, yeah, we don't want third worlders. We just only want really productive country migrants.
100%.
Europeans.
That's my view too. Yeah, that's my view too.
We'll get to the next news topic. Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone over an hour on this, and look, I think we're arguing about something which we're not really arguing about, because most of us believe in the same thing. Mitch, what was your first subject for this week?
I think I already shared earlier regarding the demographics of like Trump voters, in terms of like the Gen Xers and the Zoomers being the strongest demographics, whereas for Trump, the strongest demographic for Kamala, boomers, the pensioners, over 65s, whichever name you want to call them, as well as millennials. which is quite ironic because the millennials massively hate boomers, and yet the boomers and millennials are pretty much on the same side in regards to this latest presidential election. I don't know how applicable that will be to this country because on one hand we're American vassal states, so plenty of cultural and demographic trends can still translate over here, which then begs a point.
Well,
Will
the thing is,
Farage take note of it? Oh, sorry.
yeah, so, well, the thing is, I think both boomers and millennials are quite narcissistic, so I'm not surprised. So,
Yeah, it's like I think Dan offloads to say, but like most Gen Xers are of a persuasion of they just want to be left alone by the system. Like they don't want to have to modify their speech for sensibilities without. Plus, also, Gen Xers, like my mother, are looking down the barrel of retirement, knowing for what they're going to get shafted because the welfare state won't be there to save any of us when any of us come to retire because there just won't be anything left. I mean, the boomers will get to enjoy it, but after them, no one will get to enjoy anything because basically the state will just find ways to take all our money to pay for infinity migrants, basically.
State pensions are going to be a dead letter sooner rather than later, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like my mother's in her mid-50s. She's not going to get a good state pension. So we're going to get nothing. And that's one main reason why Zoomers alongside Gen Xers are the most right-wing demographics. I think and also another cold point which I forgot to mention earlier was I hope this election puts to bed the anti-women narrative that some people have more basically that all white women are persona non grata, blah blah blah, like Nick Fuentes types, because white women basically voted like 70 to 75% for Trump, and the only nuances are basically if you got a college degree in America and you're single as a woman, then chances are you're a Democrat, but other than that, the women are as
the trouble was Fuentes. I saw that clip going around where he sort of played into the hands of like the moronic feminists in the Democrat Party when he said, was it men win again, and what was the thing, your body my choice and that sort of stuff. And while it was funny-ish, the trouble was what he's now done is he's effectively muddied the water to such an extreme extent.
Well, has Fuentes ever had a girlfriend? I don't think so.
The thing is, as well, is
homosexual for that.
True. But the thing is that I mean, this is a narrative that's gone on for a long time. But I mean, both in America and here, voting has much more of a racial component to it than it's ever had a gendered component to it. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the liberals. Mitch mentioned earlier about the liberals expanding the franchise, but then all those women went and voted for the conservatives.
Women who are married and women who have steady boyfriends tend to be much more right-wing than single girls who just sleep with anyone they meet every single weekend. They just do. This is a fact.
Yeah.
I
think if we had enough data on that, we'd find that it actually works the opposite way around for men.
Could be.
Because men always are more likely to align with whichever is like the out political group of any given time. So like you had like the engineers plot back in the day where they were all Marxists and like men back in the day were the ones largely voting for Labour in those early days, and now it's flipped. And the men are going around looking for another party to support.
Look, I've got to just say this. Count Duckegg is saying Trump is already portraying us. Rumors of Pompeo hooking the cabinet, neocons. I'm sorry, that's being put out by neocons, not by Trump. All right?
I was just going to answer that. What's the name about that son-in-law? He's got that
Jared Kushner.
Yeah, he's not
in. He's not in.
Yeah, he's ruled out being a part of a Trump admin. So perhaps nature will heal. Plus, also, I mean, I think like JD Vance also, I mean, because he said a good comment about Reagan. So I think Trump is getting a better in his second term, as opposed to what the many mistakes he made in the first term. I do think he will actually. I mean, there's apparently I don't know if like. I mean, all people were looking on more of this about American political history, but apparently there's some sort of curse where a president was good in their first term, but terrible in their second term. I don't, but I have a feeling Trump will break that curse.
There is another thing though, Mitch, and that is Trump is one of only, I think, 2 presidents who didn't get consecutive terms. They had a break in between.
Yes, Grover
given
Cleveland.
Yeah, I thought so, Hitman. I thought
Who
so.
was the other one?
Grover Cleveland.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, generally American presidents who do 2 terms, they do them consecutively, one after the other. Trump's had 4 years in between, and he's had a bad 4 years in terms of the enemy, the left, like, you know, trying to bankrupt him, put him in prison, etc., shoot him even and kill him. I think Trump may have learned some lessons from that.
Yeah, I've used the word. So JD Vance, he said to the EU that if the EU were to make any moves and restricting free speech with Twitter or do anything like that, they would get punished in terms of NATO. So basically, so already we're seeing some good things from JD Vance regarding and Trump's administration before they've even taken office regarding defending free speech on the internet.
Yeah, and I certainly wouldn't take much notice of what Nick Fuentes says about white women, because I don't think he's ever been with one, to be honest.
And also, just to remind me with Fuentes, he spent this whole election campaign counter-signaling Trump, and and all the groypers who follow him have attacked people who said, "Oh, you shouldn't support Trump, he's a waste of time." And then as soon as Trump won, what was Fuentes doing? "Oh, I'm so glad Trump won, yay." It's like, you fucking snake.
Yeah. I mean, look, guys, we're apart from Aubrey, we're all blokes here. Have you ever gone shopping with a catboy boyfriend? And I'm pretty sure I can say none of us ever have. But, that was Fuentes.
So it's also worth bearing in mind Fuentes' sister has a black boyfriend, so
really, I didn't know that. But there we go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know too much of the guy's personal life, but I mean, if his family or anything to go by, well, I mean, there's a lot to be desired regarding him in his personal dealings with other people.
Can I just ask, before we go any further, Adam and AI, are either of you going to talk about the farmers' protest?
I was going to mention it. Yeah, that was going to be my.
All right, long as you are, then I won't worry about it, because I do want to talk about this on the stream. But yeah, that's fine. I noticed that Mitch has got his the right avatar for that one. But yeah, Mitch, I'm totally agreeing with you, mate. The thing I wish British people would get from what's happening in America is that the closest we have to Trump is Farage at the moment. It is. And Trump is a 90s Democrat. He is not a really right-wing guy at all, despite what the left say about him.
To be fair, I will caveat that with this. He did explicitly mention the phrase mass deportations. So he's gone further.
Oh, yeah. 100. And hopefully he'll do them. Hopefully he will do those mass deportations.
I mean, we can talk all we want about how Trump isn't actually right-wing, but I mean, he's using right-wing rhetoric. So even if he doesn't actually do the letter on what we want him to do, he's still platforming. I mean, remember Truth Social Post, where he explicitly mentioned the term remigration. So,
good.
So that's the thing. He still has good use in that way, rhetorically.
Good. And hopefully his friend, Nigel Farage, will take some tips from him. We can hope that, at least. Adamant, did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up this evening, mate?
No, I wanted to come on last week and I had a big thing to bring up, but I can't remember what it is. And last week I fell asleep, so
Well, if you find it, you can bring it up
I've been thinking about
anytime.
it for a couple of hours and I can't think of it. But I did want to bring up this Jeremy Clarkson article, but I assume that all these comments he's made, but I assume that that's already going to be something we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're absolutely going to talk about the farmers' protest. I mean, normally I'm like most people on the right, and like say when, for example, Tommy Robinson suggests doing something in London, I'm generally not totally in favor of it. I think this farmers' protest is something all Anglo-Celtic British people should support because
Robinson
it's
isn't
just-
connected to that, is he?
No, not at all.
Oh,
As
okay.
far as I know, not at all. No.
Someone said that
we all
they've
know
been
about-
told that they can't protest up there, but apparently even Clarkson says he's going to get a coachload of people up there.
Yeah, that's what I heard, is that it actually is going to go ahead. Because the thing is, the Metropolitan Police said no to the farmers' protest, but said yes to a Palestinian protest. Well, there's
On
a
Remembrance
huge,
Sunday.
yeah, there's a huge surprise. Eh? But on the 19th, the farmers are going to protest, and as far as I know, they're still going to do it. And given that is one of the few areas of Britain which is still, I don't know, probably 99.975% Anglo-Celtic British, I think everyone should support the farmers' protest, frankly.
Yeah. So shall I get into the topic then?
Go for it, mate. Go if you've got DLs on it. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, so this all originates to the Chancellor's, the Labour government's new policy on tax changes in the latest budget, especially around the inheritance tax, which would effectively, small independent farmers would cease to exist because of this budget. They just couldn't afford. There wouldn't be anything to hand down. It will be perfectly suitable for the big multinational farms, and as a response, this is basically brought the farming community and the farmers in this country united behind the plan to stop this. I believe they have the backing of the National Farmers Union in reversing this. And it does appear to me that that the I'll get on to John's point in a sec. It does appear to me that this is sort of like building up support. That this has been the protest, as you mentioned, has been arranged for the 19th. And there does seem to be wider support. Now, if everyone remembers back in the early 2000s, you did have farmers' protests against the new Labour government, Tony Blair's government. You also had one group who I don't know, maybe organising in parallel, I don't know, is the Countryside Alliance, which you they're not affiliated with the National Farmers Union, but they are more they're a bit more sort of like hardcore, and I think also Olswolf in the chat says the NFU can't be trusted, and that is also correct. Many farmers do feel that they're not actually there for the best interests, and I think I mean personally, I think this could the protest on 19th will just be this catalyst of it. I think there could be further forms of by the farmers of a way protesting. I remember there was where I was, it was very common that they would block it'd be like full on like roadblocks and things like that around the fuel protests.
Good.
Things like that on the motorways and such, and various A roads. So I do think that this will sort of emerge as a wider thing. I think what's been interesting is that there have been so many people who have, especially on Labour supporters who've come out and said, well, they should pay inheritance tax like everybody else. Why are the farmers so important, so more important than us? And I think they will find out sooner rather than later why that's the case. Oswald just said the late Sir Ben
Yeah, I
Gilfan
saw that.
is work with the police. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the farmers don't trust the National Farmers Union, and I mean, the only people who a lot of farmers around me who were members of, because we were a member of them, were the Countryside Alliance, and they seem to be more genuine for farmers by farmers, and they're the ones that organise the fox hunts and everything after the ban, and or fox trail hunts, and also protests against the banning of the fox hunting as well back in,
Well,
was it
look,
2003?
let's remember, with no farmers, no one's going to feed us. All right. Your food comes from farms, whether it be vegetables and fruit or whether it be meat, it comes from farms. No farms, you're not going to get fed. And also, as I said just a minute ago, 99.975% of British farmers are still actually Anglo-Celtic British people, which is not true of almost any other area of society in Britain. I think we should give them support 100%. I don't know what you guys think, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's quite obvious, and maybe there'll be someone in chat who won't agree, but the reason why Rachel Reeves I believe is targeting the farmers is, number one, they want to make I mean, I was having a look. I think about between 40 and 60% of our food is imported. And I believe the Labour government wants to make this country completely dependent on imports of food.
And can you imagine how much the cost of food will go up in Britain if that is the case?
Well, exactly, and also it's about land. Many farmers believe that this is a land grab, and that land
Which
will
it
be,
is.
which it is, which it will have to be, will be confiscated either for the big multinational farming conglomerates, or it will just be purchased by local authorities or government to be used for housing in the
For
future.
immigrants, for the
For
most
immigrants,
part.
for immigrants, and so this is why there is kind of a wider sort of political element. This is why there's a political element to this, and
I mean, also AI. I'm sorry to interrupt you, mate, but also look at this: British farmland's already being bought for endless wind farms, right? Wind turbine farms that kill hundreds of thousands of birds every single year. And it's even being bought for, what are they called? Farms where they try and get sun energy, which doesn't work too well in Britain, where no animal can live on that land, right? The worst farmer in Britain provides the occasional hedgerow for our wildlife. But if you put up great big solar panels everywhere, nothing can live in that area. And as I say, with wind farms, you're killing hundreds of thousands of birds a year. They're buying farmland up for that shit as well, which is part of the net zero project.
yeah, and it's easy to say because, number one, who determines what farmland is in use and what isn't in use? Because most farmers either operate, if they have a dairy farm, they have to rotate the cattle on each field, otherwise the field will become depleted. So there has to be a rotation, and also you have crop rotation as well. So you may go look through farmland and you think, oh well, this is like a meadow here. This is interesting. Well, it does have its uses for farmers. It definitely does.
It's farmers. It's farmers AI who
it's
keep
their
up
land. So
traditional British hedgerows and the occasional little wood on their land. And it's in those hedgerows and the occasional British wood on their land that British wildlife and British birds still survive.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I mean, when it comes to housing, well, at the end of the day, our population isn't growing. We're importing them. So, I mean, I don't, if you're arguing for, more housing in this country, I don't know what to say to you, but you should be arguing for fewer people coming to this country, evidently. We, in fact, by not building the houses, you make this country unlivable for new people. So maybe that would give them an incentive to go back if they realise the UK isn't suited.
AI, don't we talk about Britain and England as a green and pleasant land? It's not going to be a green and pleasant land.
I mean, I remember
Tom poxy little dog boxes all over it.
I mean, I remember Tom Harwood, who used to tweet out like images of like photos, or like from like aerial photos of the UK or maps or something, and like saying, "Look, we're overpopulated." And he just shows like fields and fields, and it's like, yeah, that's how that. Someone needs to tell this retard that we're not like we're not Blade Runner. We're not having these mega metropolis cities. Isn't normal. In fact, throughout most of history, cities have been relatively small. It's usually, forget the Dark Ages and stuff. Even around antiquity and everything, most people would live in rural areas because that was the way that you sustain yourself. It's the food. It's the key ingredient. In Rome, the key ingredient was grain, which came from Egypt. That's why Egypt was such an important province, a very wealthy province in the empire.
Let's even get more basic. If you want to talk about the yeomen of England, and I've done a stream on the yeomen of England, the guys who were the British warbow archers in the 100 Years' War, they were the small farmers of England and their sons. That's where they came from. Like a basic, like British thing, English thing. The yeomen of England are the small farmers and their sons of England, medium to small farmers.
Yeah.
If you destroy them, then you destroy a basic stand which England and Britain stands on.
Yeah, and also on top of all this story, of course, as Mitch's profile will allude, one of the most vocal, high-profile vocal people getting behind this, and has been massively hostile to this, rightfully, attack, this financial attack on farmers and the farming community in this country, has been Jeremy Clarkson, who of course has that diddly squat farm and everything. And I have watched the series, and one thing that I find really good about the series is he does show the difficulty of farmers, especially the amount of cost and bureaucracy that they have to go, that cost them. And how many farms are just not profitable. They don't make a profit at all. They don't have holidays, and they work 24/7. They don't really have a day off. And it's we could also talk about the suicide rate in the farming community. Well, it's extraordinarily high. It is a very, very rough job, and again, yes, he shows the absolute. I mean, he also shows the pettiness of local councils and authorities. Who, I mean, I tell you what, if you want to get red pilled on why local authorities and councils and local governments should just be straight up banned, you watch season 2, because that will give you that world view in a heartbeat. But I do think that, and I think Clarkson had a back and throw with somebody on social media, saying to him, "You need to be a leader." I saw it today. They said you need to be the leader of this, and he said, "I can't be, because in the media it will just be it would just be perceived as a stunt, because he says, I'm not a real farmer, not like a legacy farmer that a lot of these people have. And I think in some ways that is a right call for him, because this has to be from someone in with like deep within the farming community, in the farming world. It can't, and I think with him, with Clarkson, he can be there for the support and to amplify the message, but can he be the leader on this? Maybe in the political sphere, he can be, like in the political sphere, but on like the movement sphere, no. This has to fall to somebody else.
I'll give you guys an example of a farmer. Like many moons ago in Berkshire, I knew a dude who had slightly under 300 acres, all right? And he kept Shire horses because they were traditional British things, and his dad loved them, and his grandfather used to use them on the farm. And he just kept them because it was traditional British to keep these giant Shire horses, you know. He also had a badger set on his farm, which he deliberately just left there in this little bit of woodland that he left on his farm, because, you know, badgers are a traditional English animal and they didn't harm any of his livestock or anything like that. And one time I was there with my little boy, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to take you up to this field, you know, somewhere up the top there, and I'll show you some Mad March hares," because the hares were all breeding, and that's when you get the Mad March hares. And farmers are far more in touch with nature than almost anyone else. And people don't recognize that enough. And as I said earlier, in Britain, if you're going to keep traditional hedgerows and traditional little woods and this kind of stuff, which our wildlife needs, whether it be birds or animals, it's mostly farmers that do it. And they do it because they're English and British people, and they're a little bit sentimental, and they like to keep that stuff around because it was around when they were kids and when their dad was in charge and when their granddad was in charge.
I think it also goes to the heart of why, you know, nature and, you know, when I say environmentalism, it has to be a sort of traditionalist right-wing virtue. It be something we can't surrender to the left, who corrupt it.
100%.
Who corrupt it. I mean, they're going into Tolkien-esque territory here of nature and why it's important. And I think also the reason why so many rural people, not just in this country but in other countries like we see in America, why they're right-wing, is because I think they not only is because they're in touch with nature, but they're in touch with all aspects of nature, the beauty and the ugly side of it, death and all that. And I think that in itself is a very you know, it is in touch with, it's almost like being in touch with nature, but also being in touch with a higher power. And I think that's something you don't, that's why cities are very liberal, they're very organized, manicured, and don't have the worries or the risk or the visibility of death. Well, not normally. I mean, London's probably a bit different now, but normally they don't have that sort of concern. And so that's why I think rural areas tend to be more traditionalist, tend to be more you know, reactionary, right wing. And it's because of that in tune with nature and the real world, not the sort of man-made structures. And don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against cities. Cities are important. They're important for, you know, the Western civilization. But
I fucking hate them, but that's just me.
I don't have a problem with cities. I'm not like the sort of person that says we need to abandon the cities and everything. I'm not sort of advocating that sort of thing. But I don't. I think in America, like one of the problems that we see in America is how politically the cities have grown because of immigration to an extent now that effectively these cities determine, or they had been up until now, the cities had to determine the political future of the country. I mean, the good thing that stopped that has been the Electoral College, but with Trump's recent victory, he's won the popular vote and the Electoral College. So it doesn't really matter. But I do think that's the inverse of how a society should be. It should be the rural, traditionalist rural side that that controls the lifeblood of the country, not the cities, which tend to be the drain.
Mitch, what's your opinion on this stuff, mate?
I mean, I concur with you. I don't like cities as a general rule. York and Winchester and a few other aesthetically great-looking cities are an exception. But I mean, to be fair, my view of cities basically, I mean, put this way, I live next to Birmingham, so that's why I don't like cities too much.
You want to avoid Birmingham, mate, almost as much as London, maybe even more. I'm not sure. It's a toss-up.
Well, at least with London, you got pleasant architecture, like Tower Bridge and
they've destroyed a lot of Birmingham. That's true. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So, but yeah, as regarding farming, I mean, I can't remember how the farmers' protest in France and Netherlands went on, but basically, yeah, the next 5 years are literally just going to be us going for the same crap, but that the continentals had to deal with in terms of their governments. And what I'm going to keep, one thing I'll keep an eye on, because what Farage has kept an eye on is the Senate elections in 2026. I reckon Reform are going to win big in my area, like AFD won big in Turingen this year. I reckon there's like 96 seats in the Senate, and they're largely voted basically on the proportional representation grounds. So I can imagine, let's say, 25, 30 seats in the Senate going to Reform.
Well, in the Senate, they actually use the same voting system as the German and Italian parliament, so it's half first past the post and half PR. Which is the same as Scottish Parliament as well.
I thought it was so I know they changed the voting system recently. I don't know how fully they changed it. I mean, I was under the understanding that it was basically same system as what the European Parliament elections were like.
Yeah, I mean, what you can do is in the Welsh Assembly election is if you vote, you have your two vote. You vote your constituency, and then you have your vote on your regional thing. So what you would do is this is what the SNP would do. They would vote SNP and then vote SNP in the regional list or green. So what you could do is you could have like the farmers vote, Reform. And then in the list, they could vote for Reform or some other thing. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm just putting a couple of people on timeout in the comments. If you're going to go on about bestiality in my comments, please, you are going to get banned.
Back to Pakistan or Wales with you.
Yeah, return to wherever you came from. Adam, what's your view on the farmers' protest, mate?
I don't really know much about it. I saw Clarkson's thing where he described it as ethnic cleansing of farmers. Although the headlines of that have only said he used the term ethnic cleansing, which is kind of based.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think it is because, as I said earlier, 99.975% of British farmers are Anglo-Celtic men and women.
Yeah, Anglo-Saxon, but yeah,
they're English. They're white, you know.
I mean, the thing is that of course. Obviously, they're doing this because they want to break up any intergenerational wealth that still exists within the native population.
Yes,
and they want to free up that land as well to go towards slum housing for Somalians. If you look at
wind turbines or solar panels or anything else, which is
it depends, because the thing is that the people that if you live in an area, if you have a small farm in an area where it's not likely that you're going to be able to get planning application to put thousands of houses on it because there's not that much demand. Like, let's say
Yep.
certain areas of like Cumbria or somewhere, you're probably actually going to be pretty safe. The inheritance tax is going to be pretty minor. I mean, it's not just inheritance tax we have to worry about, but that is the big one. If you live somewhere where like, let's say Kent, where politicians have already
The
made
Garden
a
of
big deal
England,
out of
Adamant,
yeah,
the Garden of
yeah,
England, as it
yeah,
used
where
to be called.
well, it's still called that, but
Yeah.
where politicians have already made a big deal about just rubber stamping giant housing developments everywhere, both in on the coast and in like Tunbridge Wells and places like that.
Yeah.
Obviously farmland there, which is already worth more anyway, that's also going to up the house prices. So, you know, like a 250 acre farm, it is gonna net you an enormous amounts of inheritance tax when you go to pass it on.
Whereas it's actually worth not a great deal in terms of year-to-year earnings.
Well, this is of course the problem. So they say that this isn't a big deal. It's not a big deal because you can get a mortgage against that, or you have 10 grand to pay it. I don't actually know if 10 years to pay off the inheritance tax. I'm not actually sure if that's true because the 10-year window is for primary residence, but
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to get a primary residence on a field that's, let's say, 10 miles away from your farmhouse, but is still part of the farm.
100.
So I don't actually know how that's going to work, and I can't seem to get a clear answer from anyone who claims to know how that's going to work, but then inadvertently supports it, and you realize 5 seconds later they're a fucking idiot. But so I'm still not entirely sure on those details. But even if you could, even let's say the 10-year exception does work, let's say you end up with an inheritance tax bill of like 300k, which is not that unlikely. I mean, I know people whose parents had, you know, small property portfolios, and they're having to pay over 100 grand in inheritance tax.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and these were fairly small, fairly modest property portfolios compared to some out there. And those, you know, you're not going to raise 300 grand over 10 years from a farm.
No way.
And if you mortgage it, you're just having to mortgage a property that your parents might have already had a mortgage on, but secondly, they've already had to get a mortgage at some point, so you're just having to redo the debt and reinvigorate the supposed banking industry that Labour claim they're against every single generation.
It's what Vexed Peril has just said in the chat. It's robbery and trying to destroy the ability to pass on land to your children, basically.
Yeah, and of course the thing is as well, like it's. I mean, I'll be honest. Part of me, I'm not a farmer, so part of me is like, okay, how much do I really care? I mean, I admitted I used to work on farms, so I should care a bit more. But just the goal, right, of these fucking dysgenic subterranean freaks, right, who can't even tell the difference between like profit and turnover, or can't fathom any reason why maybe a group of people who they all admit are fucking shite at their job and are probably evil, probably shouldn't just be able to take everything you own at a moment's notice. You know, these people will sit there and go, well, why shouldn't everything you've worked for your entire life go back to the state upon death?
Well, all your dad and your granddad and your great granddad, all should just disappear now.
Yeah. And I've seen all these, you know, these fucking people even invoke the kulak, you know, the old Soviet, the Russian, they're referring to them as kulaks, you know, not as even as a joke, saying that these people actually, there are genuine tossers like this out there who believe that they are hoarding wealth in the land or something mad like that. So, yeah.
But you have to bear in mind, AI, that the people that think that, for the most part, want the white Anglo-Celtic people of Britain to be replaced by immigrants. You have to remember that.
Even the BBC report the BBC report on like the effects of the budget with the farming community, they managed to find somewhere in the country like the one Indian farming family or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I fancy that, eh?
Yeah.
Who's not amazed by that? Did everyone? I'm going to ask Aubrey in a minute to talk about the US election. But before we do, has everyone seen the Boots advert for Christmas that came out?
No.
I haven't. No.
It's a black woman who, an actress who said that the white royal family, sorry, the British royal family was too white.
Oh yeah.
She's starring in it, and almost everyone in it is black, brown, beige, or LGBTQ. Almost everyone in it. This is the Boots Christmas advert for Britain. And some guy on Twitter, I can't remember who it was now, turned around and said, well, this is Britain in 2024. Imagine how bad it's going to be in 2040 or the end of the century. And he is entirely correct, of course. They're just trying to pretend that Britain isn't a white Anglo-Celtic nation anymore, basically.
I mean, it's sort of going back to what I was saying earlier with when I was, people in chat. It's like, I'm certain their grandparents, when they came here, they loved Britain. They loved Britain for what it was. But look at the grandchildren or the children now. They are fucking dysgenic people who work to I mean, what they're doing is they are terrorists with the social fabric of this country. They're just terrorizing it daily.
Well,
That's like the whole thing.
It's just ethnic replacement. That's all it is, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, at this point, yeah. I mean, that's what they're advocating, isn't it? It's
ethnic replacement. They want to pretend that Britain is a 50% black country, which, fortunately.
Oh, I mean,
not.
have you? I'm Duke. Have you ever read the Day of the Jackal?
Oh yeah, many times.
Yeah,
well, twice
there's
at least.
And there was that film with, I think, Edward Fox in the was it the 70s? Yeah. Good film as well. There's been a new TV show I've seen like promotional posters of it around like bus stops and stuff of Day of the Jackal, where the detective hunting the elusive assassin is a black woman.
Oh, for God's sake!
Yeah, it's a black woman, and
hey, look, I would have supported De Gaulle being bopped, but nothing to do with that. But
well, it's not. It's set in modern day. There is no obviously.
Oh, okay. So there's no Pied Noirs in Algeria.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I love this bit. There's a transgender Ulster Protestant paramilitary gun runner as well in it.
Oh, there were loads of those.
Hang on.
We should all go ask Lady of Shalott, who was a little girl during the Troubles in Ulster. I don't think there were many transgender anythings in Northern Ireland back then, but okay. You wouldn't have lasted long.
Isn't the assassin in that based on Carlos the Jackal, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So nothing whatsoever to do with the original plot of that.
And the introduction of the book. I mean, the introduction of the book and the film, where there's that French paramilitary group that was against that wanted to keep Algeria within France. Yep. I forgot what they were called now, but at the beginning,
many of them were ex-Legion paratroopers and all this sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and they show a bit where De Gaulle is leaving a meeting and he was off the way to the airport, and and it shows them like multiple gunmen firing at his convoy, which did happen. That entire sequence at the beginning of the film did happen in real life, and miraculously he wasn't hit and nobody else was hit, even though if you look at the car, picture the car, it was riddled with bullets.
Sad.
Yes,
I was not never a De Gaulle fan, but anyway. But yeah, I was
Yeah.
never a De Gaulle fan. I mean, I would have liked those guys to have won because it would have given us more breathing space again. But you know, I'm a total supporter of Rhodesia, so you know. But yeah, absolutely, 100%. All of that is true. Any final points before we move to the American election, guys?
I just want to answer someone in the chat going, "Oh, we're like Sargon to be on menu." Like, I hope not, because Sargon is a retard. He's trying to. He wants us to talk about abortion on this side of the Atlantic. I don't know why I don't know why he wants to judge up back debate over here. Where
Nor do I. Don't get it. Sargon's basically still a small L liberal and can't move himself away from that. Some of these people on the Lotus Eaters are much better. Some of the younger lads are much better. But Sargon, I don't think he's moved his basic position. Really.
One of the best things about this country, and believe me, there isn't anything going about this country. One of the best things about this is the fact that abortion isn't banded around as a political, as like a major political talking point. Many leftists in years have tried. It just doesn't, because I think there is like it's not seen as like I think one thing that is disturbing with particularly Democrats and left-wing Americans is how joyful and celebratory they are when they talk about abortion, because it's not meant to be a joyful thing. It's not even meant to be a very happy or positive thing. It's not a happy thing at all.
If I had my way, abortion, except in very exceptional circumstances, like, I don't know, incest or rape, except for those circumstances, it would be limited to 12 weeks. That's the only thing I would bring in. Because 3 months is enough to work out if you've been raped, you know?
Yeah, bearing in mind, like Finland, for example, has that same limit, about 12 weeks. Whereas I have 24 weeks. Whereas we have 24 weeks over here, which is just insane. However, the thing is, like Sargon, he's wanting to import this about, and I go, yeah, that's one problem I got with certain people on the right. It's just obsessive yankophilia, where they just want to import everything to do with America over here, even when it doesn't fully suit us, really. Like talking about abortion or guns. Because I remember,
we should have more rights to guns in Britain than we have. That I'd agree with, but you know.
But then the trouble is, the masses were then just I can hear like the average British Facebook user go, but what about my safety? What about my safety? Is the response you get.
What about all the immigrants who do have illegal guns who can shoot you and you can't defend yourself? But that would just be me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but then the average British public just, oh, well, you just phone the police then if you feel threatened. You just phone the police.
Yeah, and they turn up 45 minutes later, long after the crime has been committed. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, you're reporting a crime against an illegal immigrant? Well, I'll have to arrest you for racism now.
Yeah, you said
how
it
do you
was
know
an illegal immigrant. You're going to jail for 2 years.
Yeah, how do you know they're illegal?
Your daughter, we'll give them a medal.
Yeah, did you hear about council over in Warsaw finding a bloody pensioner because one time he was litter picking, and I think he forgot to take it back.
He left his walking stick behind, didn't he?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Like, I know there's like a Green Party group, basically a bunch of young girls near me in my neck of woods, litter picking up caricatures. They get fined by the council for having done so because the council doesn't want to look bad. So that's kind of why I hate. So as far as councils are concerned, they're absolute. I don't want to swear, but they're some of the worst people I've ever had the misfortune to engage with.
Totally vomit making.
Yeah,
Aubrey, you've been very patient, and we want to talk a little bit about the U.S. presidential election and how it might change things. So, Aubrey, go on, please. You're muted at the moment, Aubrey, so you have to unmute yourself. Okay. Aubrey, we're going to talk about the US election, but you have to unmute yourself if you want to speak.
It's probably not there right now.
She may not be. Okay. Let's have a look. No, nothing. Okay. All right, I'm going to try once more. If she's not there, we'll forget about it. Aubrey, if you want to talk about the US election, this is the time to do it.
I'm here.
Ah, well done. Okay,
Yeah.
you carry on.
So yeah, celebrating. I mean, this is phenomenal. One thing I would like to talk about is that I think is funny is this phenomenon now that these leftist women are pulling out this 4B. Have you heard about this? That I guess started in like South Korea years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It didn't work. It didn't. Sorry, I was going to say that 4B. It didn't work in South Korea. It like only it was about like a few deranged South Korean leftists who did it, and that was about it.
kind of like you probably will be here, but yeah, essentially it's like that. There are these videos that I was watching before the show, kind of doing a little research, I guess, and it's hilarious. I mean, these women are crying and they're, so dramatic. They're so dramatic. And they're like, women everywhere, you've got to unite. And if you one of them ended with, if you need affection, if you need hugs or someone to snuggle with and watch movies, and even if you need a kiss, I'm sure you've got girlfriends that'll work. And I was like, oh my God. But anyway, so they're saying to just basically swear off men. So there are all these videos on TikTok of young women, and they're like, men, we're not gonna, for 4 years, you are gonna not have access to our bodies, and blah blah blah. It's really crazy. So that'll be fun to see what happens. But so Matt Walsh, I was watching him, and I know, I'm not sure what you guys think of him, but anyway, I love him. And he was saying, so essentially, what does that say to the guys then that voted for Kamala? Because that like excludes them to then too. They don't matter. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, there's one reason it's ineffective, because I'm presuming these are all just single,
Yeah.
like Democrat women. Like, it's not going to work because, you're not with someone. Whereas if you actually want to make it effective, you'd have to get at like the married women or women who are in relationships, because then it might actually have an effect.
Well, and I mean, because they're saying like, don't get married, don't get married, don't have sex, don't have children, don't whatever else for 4 years, to teach men a lesson.
The ancient Greeks tried this. The ancient Greeks tried this. There's even an ancient Greek play about it.
Yes, Lysistrata by Aristophanes. Yeah.
Thank you, Hitman.
Wow,
So yeah,
that was
and
impressive.
it didn't work then, and it won't work now. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, like the play, I think one of the things it will reveal is that sorry, it's going to sound very sexist, Aubrey, so I do.
Oh, I don't care.
It's going to say women crave attention, and particularly these women definitely crave attention, and they're not going to socially isolate themselves. I mean, yeah, there's that 1 in a million that probably is a bit of a femcel, but overall, they're not going to socially isolate themselves. They'll say that now because it's the trend and everything. As I said, I think I put on Twitter, is in a week's time.
Right.
I bet you in a week's time, it's going to be like the whole shaved head thing and everything. Then it's just going to be nothing, because it's just going to be a little spurg out by the femcel left, and that's it. They won't follow through. They haven't got the unity, or they haven't got the unity or the will or the drive to genuinely follow this through.
I have seen like right-wing American women wearing stars and stripes bikinis, and they're generally cute blonde girls, by the way. I might add.
Roll my eyes.
I have seen right-wing American women in stars and stripes bikinis celebrating Trump winning. So it's not all women in America that are doing this by any means.
It's definitely
There are
not.
many.
Se-
There are
70
many good girls in America.
You see,
Yes,
Iron Duke,
yes,
if I was, if Iron Duke, if I was there, I'd be telling them, Inshallah, ladies, put this on now. You know, the Muslims came out and voted for Trump. Put the coverings on now, Inshallah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as I said earlier, 74% of white women voted Trump. So
God, that's so repulsive.
But most women voted Trump, which is good because
most white women.
Kamala, you said.
No, most white women, black women and Hispanic women largely voted Kamala.
Wait, did you say 74% of women, white women, voted for Trump?
No,
yeah, 74% of white women voted Trump.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most white women voted for Trump. That's what he's trying to tell you.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And also 64% of Native Americans voted for Trump as well.
That's interesting.
Good.
Well, Trump wasn't wrong when he said that, white dudes for Harris, I'm sure, their wives and all their boyfriends will be voting for me. He wasn't wrong.
Right. Oh, God. The white guys for Harris, white dudes for Harris, that is hilarious.
Basically the American equivalent of the Tory boys.
Yeah, it's so funny.
They were pretty much that, and they were all gay looking.
Right, and that's what Matt Walsh was saying. He was like, this should be a sign to these guys that they don't want the little femboys. They, these women are saying like we are attracted to the guys that are stronger and
Yeah. Did you see that blog? Yeah. Do you see that? I can't remember what it was. Basically like the American version of like joe.co.uk, basically like that shitlib kind of.
Dean Withers. His name was Dean. Is it Dean Withers? I'm thinking of the little blonde, like femboy looking. Guy.
How old is that guy? He's like 22, I think, or 23.
Yeah, but he looks like a 15-year-old. It's so funny because you have the Bronze Age, virile type guys who are just filling his tweets saying, if this was like the Bronze Age, I would have enslaved you and you'd be my sex slave or something mad like that.
Yeah. Did you see that? It's about Robert. It's about that guy who popped Bin Laden. He said that about Harry Sisson and those Zoomers.
Yeah.
And it's like that meme like billions must become my concubines now.
Yeah.
Just insane.
It is.
It's just insane.
I do not advocate for Spartan culture on this stream. I do not advocate it.
Yeah, we do not.
Oh look, I don't think Spartan culture is very well understood in terms of popular culture because we often hear stuff about gay guys and all sorts of things, which when I listen to people who are actually more into that history than I am, it's probably not true. And it's the mainstream historians who, of course, are always trying to make everyone in the past look as degenerate as we are. It's those guys that always say that,
Yeah, I mean, I remember with when the cast, the human cast at Pompeii, and they were saying, "Oh, there's two men hugging each other," and it's like, turns out recently one of them, oh no, it's a woman. Oh, so probably it was a man and a woman holding each other in their last moment.
My God, I mean, people are dying all over and you're not able to breathe. You're going to kind of reach for comfort anyway. It's not like that's the person you've been sharing your bed with,
they're
for the last months.
A couple or something,
Well, but I mean, even if it is like men, even if it's brothers or it's like cousins or whatever.
No.
I mean,
the point was it wasn't.
Yeah, I get it that wasn't. But I'm saying, even if it had been,
I will say with that example, the most based one was that Roman soldier, stood to attention, didn't move.
Oh, he was on duty, mate.
He was on duty, and he wasn't relieved. He was like, "No, I am Rome. I represent Rome. even in the face of nature and all its might time not moving.
It's hardcore.
That's a
Yeah,
base way to
optimism.
go out.
But
What?
the point I was really trying to make is that you sometimes get this idea from mainstream historians that all the Spartans were gay, which, you know, had that been true, wouldn't have worked out very well for Sparta in terms of their population.
So let me ask this. So a lot of books that I've read, they talk about men in English culture during like the like King Henry VIII era, right? That
Yeah.
these knights were, or not knights, but like the, you know, the men that were dukes and whatever, that they all, a lot of them had these sex thing, these gay things going on. Is that
bullshit?
I can answer.
Utter
Yeah,
bullshit.
I can answer that. In history, Aubrey, most even in ancient history, accusations of homosexuality was usually done by rivals as a slur. If you look at popes like Pope Della Rovere, who was the Pope before the Borgias,
yeah,
right? It was that rumor was probably more started by the Borgias as a way to when he was a cardinal, was discredit him because he was allied with France and Borgias were with Spain. As a result, the Borgias, one of the levy things against them was that Cesare and Lucrezia, the Pope's son and daughter, had an incestuous relationship.
yeah.
That also was bullshit, but media likes to portray it as a thing that happened. Of course, it didn't happen. So a lot of these accusations of incest or homosexuality was pretty much made up by their rivals. Now, the one exception I will say, and maybe Iron Duke and Hitman might agree with me on this one, is the Roman Emperor Caligula. I do genuinely believe that he did all that.
Well,
That
one or two other Roman emperors as well, but yeah, all right.
Caligula had a little bit going on there. Yeah,
I do stand though with Caligula being like the best Roman emperor. Like,
oh, good lord,
the top G. No, he is like the literally the best one.
Not sure I agree with that, but all right.
We could do a lot of streams about Caligula. That'd be interesting.
The best Roman emperor was Trajan, but okay. Trajan and probably Marcus Aurelius after that.
Well, I'm just finishing episode or the end of season 1 of Rome, so don't spoil it for me.
Right, Marcus Aurelius. Right,
we're much later, babes. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right, Marcus Aurelius. Right, that guy got cuckolded by his own wife. So
yeah, he probably did.
And he created Stoicism as a means of coping with that. So that kind of talks him down.
No, I think he was a Stoicist long before that. But yeah, all right. But there were some gay Roman emperors for sure.
Elagabalus, who was a cross-dresser. So.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of him. But yeah.
Didn't Nero castrate somebody to turn them into his wife or
yes, I think he did. Yes,
yeah.
but the point I was trying to make about Spartans was that we tend to hear Athenian propaganda about the Spartans, and if you really read about the Spartans, and you read guys who liked them. And most of our sources these days, by the way, are Athenians who liked the Spartans. You know, like the guy who wrote Anabaptist and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's no great stuff that says the Spartans were all gay. There really isn't. You know,
wasn't it also Roman? Because the Romans were very, very hostile for a while. To
the Greeks, the Romans definitely regarded the Greeks as tunic lifters. You know,
yeah.
Always,
I mean, Aubrey, you're watching the Rome season. You'll probably see in Rome season 2, like Romans or like treating the Greeks as not as equals, but as these sort of like second class citizens, and that's generally how a lot of them were treated.
Interesting.
For a while, it probably wasn't until probably after the 3rd century crisis until Greeks sort of became a powerful ethnic group within the Roman Empire, because the empire was divided up into a tetrarchy. But yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Of course, they do this with the Greeks also did this stuff to themselves as well. Like a third of the characters in the Iliad are painted as being homosexual,
Mhm.
and then when you look into where the claims come from, it's like 1,000 years after Homer died.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
The famous one is of course it's the big hero of the Iliad and Patroclus. There's not that much evidence that they were supposed to be gay. Really?
I mean, it's ridiculous because at the very beginning of the Iliad, it literally begins with Agamemnon taking, like Achilles has just defeated a load of Trojans, and he's about to take this woman as like his booty, his like war bride.
Yeah,
and Agamemnon
he's
confiscates her from
Yeah.
him, and then
Yeah.
Achilles goes and has a strop for half the bloody poem. So
And
if he was
she's
gay, he
his
wouldn't
sex-
care, would he?
Yeah, he's basically his sex slave, and the king pinches her, I beg your pardon, but somehow Achilles is supposed to be gay. I'm not quite sure how.
Well,
but-
I mean, also Alexander the Great, he was meant to have that his friend that who was
Yeah.
who was like his gay lover, or that's what historians always say. But there's not really any evidence apart from them being
very true. Very true.
I think it was Hephaestion, I believe.
Hephaestion is the one you're
it's only
talking
because
about, yeah.
it's only because they find like a very there's a historian who did a really shit translation where he says, oh, I love you and all that sort of stuff, and it's like, God help these people in history when it's interpreted in the future. Like they actually have like friendship, and then it gets misconstrued as some sort of
Well, the
homosexual.
language was very different. The language back then was
It's almost as if modern gay historians want to pretend the people in the ancient world were gay. It's almost as if that's what's going on.
Almost.
I mean,
by the way, I don't
Alexander-
remember learning any of this about the Iliad. I don't remember any gay context being taught to us in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's very conservative there, so I don't remember
Good.
that. But
You
yeah,
were lucky. You were
Yeah.
lucky.
Well, it's largely the consequence of this awful book that was released a couple of years ago called The Song of Achilles. It's basically a gay fan fiction of like the Iliad by like this subversive woman.
Mhm.
Sounds about right.
Oh, and Stephen Fry, he has a book on the Greeks, and that is also, as you can imagine, I don't need to even explain why that would be so freaking incorrect, but yeah.
Much truth. We seem to have strayed a
So
long
what about
way.
Shakespeare? Wait, what about Shakespeare, you guys?
Although Shakespeare doesn't have much to say about gay people.
Okay, all right.
Well, according to an
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, according to an episode of Doctor Who from like 20 years ago,
Never seen it. Never seen it.
One thing I've noticed in Shakespeare is in The Tempest,
Mhm.
there's two characters in there who in the plays. Because I remember watching a play. This was at school years ago. They did like two male characters. They did a kiss. Now, if I remember in the play, it was like a kiss, like a hello sort of kiss, kiss on the cheek sort of thing. But then they turned it into like a full-on, homosexual kiss. And even I was like, what the fuck,
So I guess if you go in with an agenda, you can find something that you can turn into,
if you go
what
in
you
with
want
an
it to
agenda,
be.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
so
look,
can I
guys,
just say real quick though, I had a wonderful time on election night. I was on AI's podcast and then also Tim Wilms, and you guys both, well, Tim's not here, but AI, Tim, you guys did a wonderful job of covering it. As an American, I was like, these guys rock. They're doing a great job. It was such a fun night, and it was just a victorious night. And yes, everybody heard me pouring my champagne. I didn't mute, but it was a celebratory night, and it was a lot of fun. Except for the chicks that were making fun of my accent that I wanted to like really be a bitch about, but I didn't. I refrained because Tim's so professional, but they kept slamming me.
Oh, well, you'd say no horrible Don't
Two
let,
Aussies.
don't allow them to get to you. And I also apologize for any doomerism, because I know at the beginning of the stream I sort of went into doomer mode, and I was like, oh no, it's all over. It's all over.
Oh no, that's okay. I was worried too. I mean, there was up and down time, and then everybody, it was going so well for us, and then Duke comes back onto Tim's podcast, and suddenly Kamala's catching up, and I'm like, oh God, get him out of here. But it wasn't him. It wasn't you. You weren't the bad.
Yeah, but I suppose like the main question regarding this election was, why didn't we try to cheat it again like they did last time?
Well,
apparently-
there's
Yeah.
18 million missing votes from this election, guys. So if Trump wasn't cheated last time, what the hell happened to those 18 million votes?
Well, and
That is a good.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that is a good question, and that is something I will be fascinated to know how, because people in history books will look back at previous elections. How will people looking back in the future will look back at this election and the 2020 election and answer that, because that's going to be something that most people with bare minimum IQ will be looking and thinking, wait a
18
second.
million votes. That's a lot
That's
of
a lot
votes
of
that
votes.
just disappeared this
Yeah,
election.
basically.
Well, did you guys hear about the two black women in it's Georgia, I believe, that were found that they this had to do with Giuliani. I guess he owes a lot of money. There was a judgment that came in for like 128 million against him. But anyway, these two women were going and they were getting into the ballots, and there's a video of them, and they awarded these women all of that money. Like, what does that show? These women, I mean, they're messing with democracy at its very, I mean, what would have happened to them years and years and years ago? Wouldn't that have been a treasonous charge?
Yeah, they're demanding that Giuliani hand over like family heirloom.
Oh
like
yeah, his grandfather's watch. Yeah,
Well,
like
Aubrey, decades and decades ago, I know what would happen to those two black ladies in Georgia. We all know what would happen to those two black ladies in Georgia. It'd be the
right.
good old Southern boys would have to deal with them.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's certainly a new wave now. But and I had a difficulty with my vote, which it kind of creeps me out a little bit, because I was registered months ago. I checked on it. I volunteered even to be an election judge if they needed somebody at our local places. And so I check again like 3 days before, and it says I'm not registered. So I thought, oh shit, maybe this is because I was down at Fort Bragg a couple of years ago, and that was the last time I had a presidential vote. So I call Secretary of State, blah, 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 go through all the motions. So the morning of the election, I check again, and it shows right there on my phone, I've got it, that I'm registered. So I save the screen. Luckily, I had saved the screen too for months ago, showing that but it didn't do me any good. So I go to my local polling place, which it shows on my phone where to go. And I get there, show my ID, and they're like, yeah, you're not registered. And I'm like, it's right here on my phone, look. And they're like, yeah, but we're pulling it up and we can't find it. So we're both going to the exact same site, because I kept refreshing and it's showing up on my phone, not showing up on their iPads. I thought that was really sketchy. So they had me sit there for like an hour. I'm sorry if I'm going too long on this story, but it freaks me out a little. So I sit there for over an hour with these other women that are sitting by me, who I guess hadn't voted in a while. So they were inactive. So then the woman says, well, we've got 5 envelopes for, okay, pardon me, I can't remember what the term is, you guys. The term for that kind of vote. Anyway, sorry. Okay. Anyway, so it's like the vote that you can post, you can give your ballot, and they put it in a special envelope, and they put those aside. And if they need to use those, they'll count them. If not, they won't. So I said, so my vote won't count? And she said, well, but they had 5 envelopes left. This is early in the day on election day. Why wouldn't they have had a lot more of those voting ballots? And anyway, so I put mine in. I get a little receipt then that I can take home with me, and I can call 14 days after the election to see if my vote even counted. Don't like that at all. What the hell is going on there?
Democracy will work.
What is
Guys,
that?
Guys,
Oh, I'm sure.
can the democracy at work? I'm not a big democracy supporter myself, but anyway.
Well, I am, but
Aubrey, I was watching the People's Pundit, which is a chap running it, pollster called Barris, and he had it was a stream, I think the day after the election, and he had this one chap on there who lived in California, who does monitoring of like all the what's been going on in California with all the new the lack of election integrity, I guess you could say, voting integrity, which opens it up. Yeah, I mean, I 100% believe that any result coming out of California is probably inaccurate, because let's be honest, it's just, and then he was explaining, like, for example, if you go to DMV and you don't tell them, if you say, if they ask you, are you a which party you're registered with, and if you say, oh, I'm not registered with any party, they automatically put down as Democrat, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how bad.
Oh, that's
And
interesting, isn't it?
That's been proven multiple times. They will claim that's not the case, but there have been multiple times where people have received leaflets and postal votes to addresses. And then this is the absolutely amazing bit. You have some counties in California where you have hundreds of people over the age of like 100 up to maybe 112 or 15. Which is again suspicious, because what you have is properties which are 40 years old are all who people who live there, who may have been Democrats, still remain on the roll as listed as Democrats, even though the people who live there. So there have been people who lived at properties who are given postal votes, or are given who aren't Democrats. And there's been, I think there was a family who even raised this, because they said they moved to an area and it's like the property was down as like a registered Democrat household.
That's interesting.
And people were coming around to collect the ballots, and they said, well, we haven't filled it out. And they goes, oh, that's all right, don't worry, we'll take it anyway. And it's like
wow.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's scary.
Even with, and I mean, let's be honest, they're probably, it's cheating. What's going on in California? It's just straight up cheating.
Right.
Even with the level of cheating, Trump made such dramatic inroads in California compared to, I mean, I think he so far they're still counting the votes, probably trying to it looks like it's going to be 60-40, which is better, because if you last time I think it was like 65-35 or something like that. But even in California, with that level of cheating, he still managed to make dramatic inroads
that's so beautiful
in California, which is I mean, I honestly believe without the cheating in places like California and Arizona, which is again very suspicious at the moment, Arizona, I think the victory margins would, I think probably Kamala Harris would still win California, but I think it would be far more narrow. It'd be such a narrow result. And I know that the Senate race in California is also quite narrow. The Republican candidate's outperforming Trump. So
is there a Senate race in California?
There's a Senate race in California, and it's between, hold on a sec, let's see.
That's funny.
Guys, this is all very interesting. But before we finish, which we're going to fairly soon, I'd just like to go around the panel and ask what we think the Trump victory might do for Britain and other Western nations before we stop. Mitch, what's your opinion?
Well, the Chagos surrender deal for a start.
I totally agree, Mitch. Yep, I hope so. Anyway.
I mean, this is entirely an agency of someone like Farage. Perhaps bringing some courage into reform in terms of like going further, and not just talking about British values, but talking about something more concrete than that. Like perhaps but talk about British culture and identity rather than just talking about
and
British values.
people, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What else? Oh yeah, I said in the discourse of I'm going to resent the fact that over the next few years, we're literally going to have to depend upon Trump to save Britain from the worst excesses of its Labour government. Because, I mean, I resent it because we're having to depend upon a foreign government to do something we should be doing ourselves. But at the end of the day, this is what our situation is. So
Yeah, I agree. Aubrey, what difference do you think Trump might make to, say, Britain?
So I hope that this whole illegal immigration business will change the tide. I think it might, and I think that it's really cool to see the friendship between Farage and Trump, and maybe this kind of phenomenon will start to leak over. It seems like American culture. I know a lot of you guys aren't big fans at times, Mitch. But hopefully, that will kind of leak in a little bit. And I think people are waking up. I think people are seeing the just craziness and what's happening to our countries. And look at the violence. Look at the cities. And I guess there's a plan for to like light up Portland. I mean, like on fire, like burn it in the next week. I don't know. Portland's freaking nuts. So we'll see what happens there. They can burn themselves, I guess, if they want. I don't know what that teaches us, but Portland's like San Francisco.
Much common sense, Aubrey.
Right. I mean, that's what I hope. So, and I hope the woke culture will, go to the side. So.
Would be good. Hitman, what's your opinion?
Well, I think this can only be good for Britain, as Trump and Musk and other friends will hold Starmer accountable and hopefully work to with Farage to make things a bit better and move towards a nice future government which can sort this mess of a country out. So,
yeah, we needed all the help we can get. Adam, what do you think, mate?
I don't really know. I mean, on one hand, some people are right when they say it's going to like buy people back into the regime. I don't think that Trump was cycled in, as some people are saying, but
no.
It will sort of, it doesn't. It keeps the play going. People think that that democracy is a tool through which they can win. I mean, maybe they're not wrong, but obviously most of us have.
I hope they're not wrong. I mean, Adam and I hope they're not wrong. I mean, I think they probably are, but I hope not.
Yeah. I mean, if it looks like they're actually gonna make freedom of speech like a cultural export, I mean, first off, that'll probably be the one cultural export America's ever done that's actually really benefited us.
Yes.
And it will really benefit us. Well, yeah, usually it always goes the other way. It's our cultural exports that benefit the rest of the world.
Oh, thank God.
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It kind of seems like Trump's going to be a bit more active in terms of like network building in Europe. I know he tried a little bit of this before he entertained it. He had there was that little group, wasn't there? You had like Shinzo Abe, obviously not European, but Shinzo Abe, Viktor Orban. Was it a Czech guy as well? I can't remember. But
Harambe and Peanut the squirrel.
Yeah.
Our pets. Yes, hopefully they'll be helped. Sorry.
Yeah. Peanut. What was it? Peanut and Fred looking down from the clouds, like the outro from
Peanut
Star
was
Wars.
So freaking cute.
My God. Adam, did you see the squirrel run across the stage before?
Was that real?
Yeah, that was real.
Oh
yeah,
my God! You guys talk about signs from God before this election with the assassination attempt and the squirrel. That's hilarious.
Do you know what? All those left wing girls who respond, all those that are crying over the abortion, they're like, we can't get the abortions. The response should be like collectively, you should have come after our squirrel, bitch.
You should have come after our squirrels.
That is
Yeah,
so
and
funny.
the weird thing is that most women are very keen on small furry animals. You know.
Of course.
To be fair, you saw shitlibs basically coping about the Haitians in Ohio, so to be fair,
Yeah.
their worship of immigrants takes precedent even over the love for
Oh
our
yeah,
cats.
absolutely.
So-
They don't care if your puppy or your kitten
Oh,
or your goose or your duck gets murdered by a Haitian. That's all right for those people.
let me tell you
Yeah.
what would happen if somebody tried to come after my dog.
I
It
know
would not be
that.
good.
No,
Yeah.
I know, and you're right.
Right. That's
Yeah.
why it's great to have the Second Amendment in America.
Sorry, Armin, I didn't
Sorry.
mean to interrupt you, mate. Carry on.
Well, I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously, there are people in our neck of the woods that talk about how the Overton window isn't a real thing.
But it is.
There is a point to that in terms of I mean, if you look at it now, if you consider what's the Overton window set by, it is set by our elites. So the public has been out of kilter with the Overton window for years.
Yeah.
70% possibly of the public would be considered far right by the Overton window that's laid out,
For
which is
sure,
just
for
obscene.
sure.
And the 5% of absolute nut jobs on the far left would be considered moderates under that same system. But there is an extent to which you have which the Overton window, as we understand it, as we should understand it and should push it, is driving things into acceptable parlance so as to bring about some sort of preference cascade. And if Trump can actually pull off the illegal deportations, if people remember back to when Musk first bought Twitter, made it into a free speech platform, and within a few months we had all of these center right guys like Tom Harwood, or centrist guys like Tom Harwood, all the way out to leftists having to instead argue that immigration, that mass deportations were not feasible. Not that they thought they were wrong, because all those people do think that, but that they were simply not feasible because they had to be pushed back to that point.
Well said, mate.
If you see a world power doing that on a global stage where everyone can see it, that's another argument that's just kind of been eviscerated. That's a fairly minor point in the grand scheme of things, but I just think we need to wait and see.
It helps, and we should take every win we can. AI, what's your thinking about how Trump winning might help Britain and the Old Commonwealth?
Well, something I will reference, and this was I watched earlier today Morgoth's video on the sort of this matter, where he talks about the woke North Korea theory that Mitch has put in chat here, where effectively Trump, because of Trump's win, and there does seem to be some moral unity within elements of the regime around this, given the fact he's won the popular vote. I mean, and you've got people now wanting to sort of team up with him, like Bill Gates has been asking for a job in the administration.
God, I hope he avoids him like the plague.
But
Bill
you got
Gates
all these.
Is a thoroughly bad person.
Yeah, and the thing though is, so there could be this. I mean, going to AA's theory about putting the woke away, this could happen under Trump. I think it is a possibility. But whatever happens, I mean, if that does happen, and that there is like a shift or a change in America's foreign policy with Ukraine and stuff, Britain could be, the question will be, it may turn into, or the Starmer regime may try and do a North Korean style, maybe not in the most extreme element, but where effectively Britain is, and I like this term, is sort of cased in amber. It's sort of frozen in amber, like frozen in time and space, endlessly talking about talking points from 2020.
I don't think it'll work, mate.
Transgenderism.
I don't think it's going to work. I think
what can Starmer do though?
Yeah,
thing is,
will Starmer survive as Labour leader?
I think what will happen is Starmer will flow. He'll go with America on the on foreign policy, but
Half
when it
his
comes
party
to
will
domestic,
hate him.
and then but on domestic stuff, he will behave in a completely different manner. And so I think I think what's going to happen is effectively Labour, and because Farage, and this is where the dynamic's different. Farage just has direct connections with Trump. Farage
Yeah,
is a political in opposition in this country, so Labour is actually snookered in the political realm quite a bad way when it comes to both on the foreign and domestic front. I think the only
Also, I look at what Lammy, and of course Lammy's not even British, but Lammy, who is the supposedly, in air quotes, British Foreign Secretary, although he's always a black man standing before people, even when he's sitting down. Lammy was vastly insulting to Trump, and you can't keep him as your foreign secretary,
No. I mean, the big test for this Labour government will be what do they want to do with Ukraine? There have been signals today from Starmer and people in Labour government that they're sort of open to negotiations around Ukraine.
What
So
a
you're
surprise.
starting to see the climb down. The only people who aren't are Lib Dems, but the Liberal Democrats are irrelevant anyway, so no one cares about them.
Yeah.
Um, so that could be the case. So I mean, I think I don't know if there will be any change. I think what you'll see is you'll see Twitter will be secure in Britain. If Trump hadn't had what if Trump had lost and Elon had lost and everything, Twitter X I could see being banned in this country quite easily.
It could happen in Australia, AI, let me tell you.
I know
This is
it's
going to
happening with
be,
children, isn't it, in
yeah,
Australia?
no,
Yeah.
not even that. This is going to be a subject for our stream next week. But I'll just outlay the main points. They want to ban all people in Australia under 16 from going on YouTube, even. And that's going to require everyone to have a digital ID. So there's going to be no more anonymous.
But that's it.
For
It's
Australian. Hang on, let me finish, mate. There's
Yeah.
going to be no more anonymous for Australians in terms of the internet. So basically, they want to turn Australia into a Stalinist type state.
That's kind of hilarious if you think about it, because like YouTube is not the problem in terms of online
No.
radicalization.
YouTube is, how often do we have to be careful what we say on YouTube? But according to the Australian Labor government, under that Albanese gay guy who runs Australia at the moment, yeah, that's what they want to do, and is very hard-faced lesbian woman who runs, his like internet story in Australia. Basically, if the Labor government in Australia do that, that will absolutely lose them the next election. But apparently, they still want to do it. It's weird. It's weird to me.
I mean, what if Eindhoek, if they are successful, what does this mean for your YouTube channel? Would that affect it?
Oh, I would have to use a VPN all the time. And
So you can get round it using a VPN.
I don't know that. I don't. It's not happened yet, so I don't know it. But that's
because
what I would try and do.
I've heard of this story, and my initial thought was, well,
hang on, AI. Let me point out one other thing to you, or two other things to you before you carry on. If you say that the Australian property market is a bubble, right, which it is, and it's going to burst, they could put you in prison for that under this Labor law in Australia. If you say Australia giving military kit and taxpayers' money to Ukraine is a bad idea, they could put you in prison for that in Australia. This is what this Labour thing is going to do. It's absolutely insane, and there
And that-
are
what-
very ordinary Australians who are pointing out this is going to make Australia into something worse than communist China is now, or the Soviet Union was. This is from
I
the
need to head
Australian
off.
Labour Party.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need
So-
to head off. It's very late here, so I need to get
Thanks
up
for
quite early in the
joining
morning.
us, and we're always very happy to have you on, mate.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, no problem. Talk to you later.
Yeah. I was gonna say we'll talk about probably about that next week. Then we'll save it for
Yeah,
next week.
I do want to talk about that next week, but in the
Can I say one
meantime-
thing real quick? I want to do like a little shout out to Lady of Shalott because I love her and I think she's, I think everybody here does. But she and I were talking and we want to say, Melania Trump, you go because your fashion sense is phenomenal. So girl moment here. But she's beautiful and she's going to be like the most kick-ass looking first lady. And Barron Trump, also 6'9", insane, but you're looking adorable. But there we go. Sorry. I'm not sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not apologizing.
Everyone here will be happy to give a
Well,
shout out to Lady of Shalott.
Yes,
The
exactly.
fashion stuff, maybe not so much. But all right, okay. Any final thoughts, guys?
Well, one thing I want to get people's opinion on is I was listening to the Old Glory Club stream on the aftermath of the election the other day, and they were talking about the idea of Trump getting an extended term or running for a third time to make up for the fact that he obviously, the previous time was stolen from him.
Was conned.
Yeah. And so they were talking about either his term is extended to an 8-year term instead of 4, or they somehow, circumvent the term limits to him run again. I mean, I'd like that to happen, but I don't think it's going to because the term limit was a amendment to the Constitution, which is incredibly difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, I don't think they'll change it. I think JD Vance is our best hope for 4 years' time.
Agree. Yeah, Trump's not going to get another chance.
President for life.
That's also something they did say. Like Trump is the king of America, and they should make him president for life, and then Barron will succeed when he passes away.
What you do is I would be far more radical. I would actually abolish the title president and have first citizen. So first citizen Trump, and then first citizen Barron.
Okay, so you mean like an Augustus there?
Basically, yeah. And then
entirely in favor with your avatar, but AI. Would you like to plug your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I got my YouTube channel. If people want to check out my election coverage stream, it's still up there. It's pretty good. Good sort of analysis through the night. If people want to catch that up and see what Aubrey was referring
and your
to.
Channel AI, your channel is AI Shiatori, is it not?
That's correct. AI Shiatori, that's right. And
good.
Find my channel
Hitman,
there.
would you like to plug your channel?
Thank you. Yes. So every Tuesday at about 9 p.m. UK time, I have my weekly show, The Archival Discourses. Next week, I'm due to be having you on Iron Duke, and we're going to be talking about the legacy of the Great War. So that should be interesting.
Yep.
And I also have an ongoing series with my friend Hunger, looking at the politics and history of the Middle East. We should be doing the next episode of that. I think next Saturday during the afternoon. So stay tuned for that.
Cool. Go and check out AI Shiatori and Hitman's channel on YouTube. I will be putting links in comments under the stream later on. Mitch, anything you wanted to plug, mate?
Nah, not from me.
All right, guys. Before we leave, I'm going to play us out with a tune. Let's see if it works this time. Okay. That was from my friend, Patriotic Archives YouTube channel, and it was a Highlander coming home from the Second Afghan War between 1878 and 1880. And you will notice all the local children and the local dogs were very happy to see him.
Kind of made me want to dance. It was a nice little song.
You like Scottish stuff, so yeah. But yeah, that was Highland Laddie from Patriotic Archives channel. Go and check him out, guys. He's very good. We will see you next week for Splendid Isolation 198. And in the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down. Check you later, guys. Can go well. Please like the stream and subscribe. Oh, hang on. I need to quickly check if we had anything on entropy. Oh, we did. I'm glad I checked. Sorry, guys. Before we finish, we have some entropy super chat questions to ask. The first one is from Sheev Palpacringe for $5. When I look at the United Kingdom history, particularly with military, how did they integrate the military of the Kingdom of Scotland and the Kingdom of England? Because it seemed to be an impossible task at the time. All right, my answer to this one is that even at the time of the 1745 rebellion, even for those people like Aubrey who watch Bodice Ripper TV shows like Outlander,
love it. Jimmy Fraser.
Yeah. But in fact, the vast majority of Lowland Scots and some of the Highland clans supported the English, and they did.
They were the traitors in Outlander.
Outlander is not historically accurate. All right,
You've not read it.
Not.
Go watch Kidnapped. It's far more accurate.
Yeah, Kidnapped is better, actually. Yeah, thank you.
No idea what that is, but it sounds lovely.
Go check it out. You'd probably like it. But yeah, it's the reason it wasn't as difficult as you think. And also bear in mind when
they were bankrupt.
Yeah, and also bear in mind when Elizabeth I died, Elizabeth Gloriana, the lady who was in charge during the Spanish Armada and all that, when she died, the throne of England was owned by the Scots.
Yeah, it went to James, who became James I of England.
Yeah, James I of England. Was he not James IV of Scotland? I think.
Yeah,
James VI.
James VI, and he coined the term. I mean, he was the one that coined the term Great Britain to describe his two kingdoms, and the Union Jack, the 1707 Union Jack, was the one which had the St George's Cross and the St Andrews one, was used on ships before the official Act of Union. That was a popular used in the Navy.
Absolutely right. Yep.
And when it comes to one of the reasons why the Act of Union was conducted was because of the Scottish attempts to form a colony in Central America, which completely failed, and I believe that they were pretty much bankrupted because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, 1745 rebellion, the truth of it is that most Scots didn't support Bonnie Prince Charlie. But you're not allowed to say
Just to let you know, Jamie Fraser and clans, they did try to actually thwart good Bonnie, Charlie? Isn't that his name? God, I'm not a historian. I don't know. Anyway,
you're not.
They tried to thwart. I'm not.
I mean, at the time, Aubrey, I believe 70% of the Scottish population were Protestant, so Church of Ireland and other Protestants, and then the remaining 30% would have been Catholic, which were mainly in the Highlands, majority in the Highlands. So, it was, I mean, and remember that it wasn't about, and this is where they get confused. It wasn't about Scottish independence. Bonnie Prince Charles didn't just want the Scottish throne; he wanted to take the English throne as well. He wanted the whole.
Yes, he did.
He
Yes,
wanted
he
the whole
did.
throne. So it wasn't about. I know many people, many nationalists and Celtic nationalists like to draw it as like, oh, independence from England. It wasn't. It was about conquest of the Scottish kingdom and the English kingdom
Yep, it
against
was.
William.
Apostolic Majesty has an excellent stream on that, which I would recommend people to go and check. Sheev Palpacringe again for $3 US. The only immigration I would ever want in the hundreds of thousands would most likely be our British indigenous stock, e.g. expats, Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, British descended South Africans. I'm not going to argue with any
British
of that, mate.
descendant Americans too. Maybe?
South Africans. Well,
No,
well,
I'm saying maybe.
well, he didn't mention those.
I know.
but
I'm throwing that
fair
in
enough. I get, but yeah, fair enough. I'm not going to argue with it. Seems fair enough to me.
But none of those Hispanics though. None of those cringe Hispanics.
No, well, he doesn't mention those.
No.
But yeah, I Chief Palpacringe, yeah, I got no argument with any of that. All right, final super chat is again from Chief Palpacringe, again for $3 United States dollars. But I am in favor of imperial federation, e.g., Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and ruled by white Anglo-Celtic people for Anglo-Celtic people. Again, I've got to say I have no argument with you on that stuff if we had based governments in all those nations.
I don't think Canada's largely a LARP. I think it's too far gone now. I think I'm basically more of a pan-Europeanist at this point. I think that's where our future lies. For better or worse.
The truth is, Mitch, there is not a base government in Britain, Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. But if there were, then I'd agree with what Chief Palpacringe says there.
I mean,
there were base governments.
There are a few political, like I've seen a few politicians in Canada who started.
There are parties that we could support. Yeah,
there are a few politicians in Canada. There's a few politicians in Canada who have said, "We're not American. We need to reconnect with our British roots." And I was like, "Yes," because it's bloody Trudeau's father who undid all that with Canada. Yeah. And made it like an American part too, and it's like no, I mean, and the worst thing that ever happened was Canada changing its flag. It should have kept the Union Jack and the
totally
maple leaf.
Totally agree.
Worst thing in the world.
Totally agree.
I would remind you, Canada's going to go minority white in 2031. I reckon. So
maybe it will change.
And it's so many Indians, so many Indians that have been imported into Canada.
But we had what's his name? Endeavour on our stream a couple of weeks ago, and there are based parties in Canada. So I'm not going to totally lose hope for Canada any more than I will for Britain or Australia or New Zealand.
Could we do an episode one of these days with Mitch, AI, Adamon for sure about all the great things that America has done? And could we just do that?
Short list.
I don't think that's very likely. I don't think that's very likely.
Damn it!
But anyway,
dude.
No, I think that's very unlikely.
No, we've done a lot of good things. That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Not many for Britain, but anyway.
Okay, well, World War II, we
helped a little
bit.
I like the front. I like the. Hold on, I do like the frontiersmen, but most of the frontiersmen probably wouldn't. depending on what time period, may not describe themselves as American, but
They
either
were
way,
pretty strong people, though, to deal with what they dealt with and to live.
yeah,
and survive.
I do like that, but I at the same time, I also they wouldn't
guys, we're
recognize
almost
America today.
guys,
Sorry,
we're almost on
God,
3
I cause
hours.
havoc, don't I?
We're
on this
almost
show?
on 3 hours. I'm trying to
Right.
close the stream. If
Yes,
you
sir.
want to talk about this privately, go for it. Let me close the damn stream. All right. Thank you very much this evening to my guests, Mitch, Adaman, Hitman, AI, and Aubrey. Thank you very much for joining us. Do go and check out Hitman and AI's YouTube channels, which will be in the comments later on. In the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.